Evening all. Did someone call? I guess summer's over. We're back in town. Danny, how are you?
I'm rather depressed actually after that. Summer's not over yet. I'm not having this. What's this?
No,
these
it's not.
sunglasses are going nowhere for a while.
I've still got the sort of semi-Hawaiian shirt on, so
Yeah, like it.
Indeed, actually, just on that, as Danny well knows, talking of summer, I've had a week off this week, and I've been painting a white hallway in white, which, by the way, drives you absolutely insane. I thought there's surely nothing more pointless as a venture for humankind than painting a white hallway white. And then I thought, well, there is one thing, and we'll talk about that this evening. Yes, that can be the theme of the season once more. But yeah, lovely to have everyone back. I mean, I want to know the fans. They're sort of clamoring, they're asking, they're wondering. I mean, what do you do? Busy professional go-getter like yourself on off season. What do you do in the summer, Danny? Are you one to sort of down tools, fully relax? Go into sort of monk-like existence into the hills, beach parties. I don't know. What's your summer look like generally?
I don't know if I want to answer this. I don't know if how many people I sort of work with might ever watch this pod. I'm sure none. It doesn't really matter. But no,
True.
I mean, I have a good time. I'm still productive. I still do work, but I as you know, like I'm all or nothing in everything in life, like completely all or nothing. So I do lose control a little bit. I just lose control a little bit of myself and my lifestyle. So there's everything's in excess. It's too much drinking, too much holidays. Just kind of go completely all out. And I've already sort of got in my mind that I'm gonna have a bit of a fresh. Like when I get back from holiday in mid-September, a bit like I did last year, I'm gonna have a period with no drinking, pure health, 2 months, 3 months, start running again. But yeah,
nice.
No, it's good. It's good. I'm a little bit worse for wear today because again I've just been out all weekend. Really, not out. It's not like I'm going out partying, but I just go to nice pubs and drink nice real ale all day every day. So if I slur my words a little bit today, I'm just a little bit slightly worse for wear. But I'm all right. I'm all right.
Living the dream though. But it's an alcohol-free day today, is it?
It is an alcohol-free day today. Yeah. So if we'd have been podding tomorrow, it would have been probably more ideal, but it'll be fine. It's much needed. But I've got a pub quiz tomorrow on a Tuesday, so there'll be a few nice pints of real ale. You can't go to the Fletcher Moss without a Hopster Blonde, which is like the nicest beer in the world. And then
that does sound good.
And then you've got Wednesday, which is like, what the hell is Wednesday? And then it's Thursday, which is basically weekend again. So yeah, it's good. It's good. And I've got my you'll see that I've finally filled up my I've put something on the blank wall. I thought it was going to look way bigger because the map is actually like a really big map, and it's like the only thing I've got to put on the wall, so it's not very impressive. But
yeah, I was going to say it's probably vast, isn't it? But the nature of a sort of high-tech camera.
Yeah, and it's a bit disappointing. It looks kind of. I'm going to have to get other stuff up there, but there's something right in the middle. It's a pretty cool map because it's like you've probably seen loads of these before, but it's like it's kind of a real world map, so it sacrifices a little bit of the shape of, especially in the northern hemisphere of the countries, because normally they're stretched out over the poles in place of proportion. So the countries, this is not very interesting, but so you see that Greenland is not actually that big, and whereas Africa is absolutely massive. So it's quite a nice map. But
yeah, I think you have to remember who our audience is. Last resort types prefer that than any of the actual talk about the FPL. Do you remember? And just on Summer Chat, I have to confess, I think I'm at odds with maybe this is a sort of content creator push that people do at this kind of time of year, and they're like, yeah, FPL's back, baby, and all this kind of stuff. And don't get me wrong, I do feel like that on some level, and we love you very much. I quite like a break. I don't mind it at all. As you know, only probably about an hour ago, we were sitting after having a little bite to eat, reading another chapter of the Count of Monte Cristo before going on air. I like the summer and I like a break.
I do. I really do. I really do. And it's just exactly in line with what I just said about being like all or nothing. So I absolutely love a break, and I just get into such a nice lifestyle and enjoy myself. And you're free of that. You free yourself of that kind of But just FPL. And so I find it really hard to get back into it. I always find it really hard. But then when you say that, you think it's going to be hard. And by the way, I could never play World Cup fantasy. I can't do that. I need a break. I need to just kind of fully reset. And no, it's funny, isn't it? Because it does feel very hard to get back into, but then your brain sort of works a certain way. Like when the game launches and you kind of try and make a draft, even if you're not making like realistic draft, but you try and put a few pieces together, it all just comes straight back, don't you? Like I felt really quite excited this time when it came back after I'd made the team and looked at a few prices. I was like, yeah, you know what? I can do this. And I don't know, it's the way our brains work, isn't it? I mean, just to say quickly, I don't want to go on too much of a rant, but I was in the pub with my dad on Saturday. And they started like this chess club, and my dad used to be a very serious chess player. He used to play for like Wales and stuff, and board one and stuff. He's very sort of serious player back in the day. And he played this guy and obviously annihilated him. And then he came and sat back down with me, and we were just chatting. And he kind of said, he said, "Is it weird now?" Because it was a really random game, but he was like, "Is it weird that because that guy would probably think it's weird that I would obviously be able to just completely play back that game, every single move instantaneously, every single move." And obviously. Wow. You understand? No, but you understand that, don't you? Because he thinks about chess all the time and has done for so long. And I sort of thought it's kind of similar to us. If you think about your FPL team, how we can just see the pieces, and we can see all the moves that we've made over a whole season, and every decision we made and every chip we made. It's kind of the same thing. It's just what we see. So as soon as you show me a fixture ticker and a draft when the prices have changed, that mode just kicks back in, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. It would be remiss of me not to say a lovely hello to all of our kind supporters and those who have given up a little bit of time to listen to me and you have a chat about this old game. Yeah, lots of people to say hello to. And by the way, we this whole thing, I know you're thinking, oh, they haven't made any changes. They've been a bit lazy over the summer. Yeah. Surely they should do something. Oh, okay, Danny's got a map. Okay, fine here. But other than that, we have got lots of things planned. I will talk about that in a few minutes' time, so do forgive me. But yeah, things will change. We probably won't be on this medium for much longer, and we've got a few things there that we'd like to announce later on. And perhaps we could have had that ready, but we'll be working hard behind the scenes to improve the product, if that is such a thing. But just to have a quick hello to people. Benji Yag, he was one of the mini league greats from last year, and I will announce the code for that in a few minutes' time. It is in the chat as well if you can't be bothered to listen to me say it. And also, it doesn't come across on the screen very well, so do scroll through the chat if you want to, but I will announce the code in a few minutes' time. I am 1974. What did you do to Richie to be punished with interminable painting? I don't know. Yeah, it's a strange thing. I don't know whether anyone would agree with this, but it's not good for... I think the human brain can't really deal with the lack of stimuli. So if you leave them, for example, in a closed room with nothing going on, no colors, no movement, no sounds, etc., you will quite quickly go insane. In fact, Danny will probably know more about this than me, but I am persuaded that is true, just by painting the hallway this afternoon. So yeah, it definitely will happen. Kev Kehoe sent some lovely messages at the end of last season, so very glad to see you again, Kev. Sam, Ben, who calls you what was it, Nutcracker? Nut Smasher, something like that. He'll remind me in a minute. I'm not quite sure why, but maybe you've got a sort of
I don't want to know.
risque past that we don't know about. Perhaps it's a former girlfriend. I don't know, but we'll find out a little bit later. And Helen was walking her dog earlier on there as well. And also hello to Jack Flash, who recognised that when I was talking about a wangle earlier, I was indeed talking about a medieval folk dance from an episode of Bottom. So that's incredibly well remembered, Jack, and we like you very much. Anyway, let's sort of kick on a little bit. We are gonna Danny has done a very nice job, actually. He's got this lovely thumbnail produced earlier today. We're just trying out one or two new designs at the moment, so yeah, hopefully this is one to stay. What do you think? By the way, if you see anything today like this or hear anything about our plans and think, oh, I've got a view on that, nicely, please do feel free to give some feedback, etc. So, Dan, go on.
Well, I just want to say, before anyone thinks that I've been sitting around for ages, like designing new things, I'm clueless, and it's probably absolutely rubbish. But obviously, I usually use just this basic like Canva thing, and we realised about half an hour before the pod that it had erased all of our previous. Well, I realised that it had raised all of our previous templates and drafts and all that, so I just had to full panic and got AI to help a little bit with stuff, so it's like a 5-minute job. But I think it looks all right, actually, to be fair.
Yeah, it's nice. Oh, I've just remembered actually. In terms of improvements behind the cameras, I realized that in my shots, and that you will get higher up at some point, but there are various plants now scattered around the room. I've got the sort of the ones that just won't die. My wife's got all the nice ones in her office and other parts of. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. There was supposed to be a nice little plant there, but I don't know. Oh yeah, but although you can see a new Freddie Hubbard vinyl, if anyone's interested in a little bit of trumpet action from the early '60s, I'm sure you all are. Anyway, onwards and onwards. FPL back, of course. Let's just talk a little bit about the mini league, because people were very excited about that. Apologies for the screen there. Just pretend that it didn't happen and I haven't made a tremendous mistake. But whenever I line up the slides, for some reason, this bit always wants to move. But anyway, the code, and I'll read it out in my sort of sexy Terry Wogan style voice. But the mini league code R. Oh, actually, all lowercase, by the way, just in case. So R6AIW9. So that's R6AIW9. I think many of you will be able to just click the button that says "Would you like to play again?" type thing on the website. But please do. We'll talk prizes at some point, but obviously it was Matt Nuttall, wasn't it? Matt Nuttall who won the famous. I should have put his picture up on here, shouldn't I? But he won the famous lavender pillow spray. I hope that's working out for you, Matt, and it's getting you a good night's sleep. Actually, just out of interest, I haven't asked you this, but I mean, in terms of sort of comfort over the summer, are you good at dealing with the heat? I'm just, we haven't had this conversation, but hearing Southwest London, I can tell you it is an absolute nightmare most days. I haven't seen rain for about 2 months, and I don't know what to do anymore.
Yeah, no, I'm not great with it. There are lots of fans that have been purchased, and there's big fans and handheld fans, and I struggle to sleep at the best of times. So it's not been ideal. But
yeah,
I'm gonna be going to Seville in early September for a week, and that's like one of the hottest places in Europe, probably. So better get.
It is, yeah. No, I remember going there for the only time. I think it was in 2017, and that year I'd been to St. Petersburg, where my first day was -28. And a few months later, I went on holiday to Seville, and the first day was 42. And it's just incredible, isn't it, how the human body can kind of cope with this. And for what it's worth, I'm okay with the cold. It doesn't really bother me a great deal, although you would die if you were out in that for too long, But yeah, there's something about the English summer this year that's not good. In fact, shout out to our good friend Pete in Canada. They've had some really horrible kind of weather there, temperatures, etc. I remember he sent me a screenshot of his temperatures 1 month where it was sort of, he was getting back from holiday and it was like 38 most days, but the feels was like 10 degrees hotter. So it was like 48, 49, that kind of thing, because they had the wildfires and the air quality was awful. So shout out to Pete. He's actually joined our SKRW team. So welcome aboard, Pete. I'm very happy to have you. Yeah, so do play this year. Hopefully it'll expand, and we can do some sort of beat Danny game and copy above average or something like that. Beating me isn't really, all that, is it really particularly? I think that's maybe a challenge for one or two of the niche sort of fetishist types in here, but beating Danny is a real prize.
Don't you start. Top 1K wanker. He's don't listen to him, chat. He's
we are. Yeah, it's true. Elite 1K wanker. I mean, not for the very long at this rate, it should be said, but we try. I suppose we should just talk a little bit. I mean, we're going to talk about. I will talk to you in a minute about sort of process, and what I mean by that is kind of when it comes into this time of year, and you're getting your brain back into the game, how you handle that sort of thing. But I think it would be wrong of us not just briefly touch on game changes. I know every other pod has talked about it a bit, but this is our version, and therefore inherently you want to hear this, of course. So yeah, just interested what your thoughts are. I've got my own mini monologue ready, as you can probably imagine, because I have quite particular views on all of these things,
okay.
Which won't be a surprise. So would you like me to begin, or shall I hand over the reins?
No, you begin then, because I haven't actually thought about this. I didn't know this was coming.
No,
So.
well, I mean, I suppose it feels like a few weeks ago now. But no, all I was going to say, anyone who's watched this before, anyone who's kind enough to return after, for a second or a third shot at it, or maybe even stayed for the course, will know that there are several things about my attitude towards FPL that are a little bit off-piste and a little bit different to most. That involves not really checking or looking at rank until the end of the season, just because I decided a few years ago it was something I'd like to do and just help me play the game clean and just enjoy it a little bit more, not really worry about that side of things. Yes, there are problems with that, I'm sure, but that's the way I like to do it now. And we'll talk about whether I'll carry that on, because I think this season is going to be more tricky on that score than usual. And of course, the other thing that I've always I know that you disagree with me, but I would personally like is a nice, lovely break at some point in a given week where I don't have to think about price changes. And I know, I understand it's good for the gameplay and all of that, but I personally, just as a human, would welcome the ability to pause and just worry about it at deadline or whatever it might be, have an inherent flaw. But of course, that's not going to happen because the FPL game is designed for improving engagement. So of course, logically, it's the right thing for them to do, to bring in price changes as something that the mainstay of the game will now know about, and they brought it, of course, onto the site. We can discuss the fact that these are price change predictions, like you don't know. But we can talk about that in a minute there as well. And of course, real-time updates, something again that I don't look at. I don't look at scores flashing in on a Saturday afternoon. It doesn't do anything for me. I'd rather not. So if I'm not watching the game, I will wait until a time where I can watch the highlights and that sort of thing. But everyone's different. That works for me. But what are your thoughts, Danny? Or did this make any impact on the way that you play the game at all?
No, and I'm only just thinking about it now, really, because for the first time, yeah. I mean, really, obviously the changes to bonus didn't do much. I suppose we'll touch on them at some point when we talk about the players. I'm just thinking about some quite interesting things now as you're talking, to be honest. I mean, with the price change predictor, there's a few things to say. Like, so first of all, it's going to be interesting. I'm always been one that I don't think the price changes should be transparent. Like, why should they be? Like, it's like one of the really fun aspects of the game. Like, that we don't really know, and we have to kind of make those predictions. And I think it's a bit of a shame. I mean, I suppose we use third-party apps, obviously, and sometimes they weren't that accurate, and so you presume that this is more accurate because I know. So that might sound silly at first, and you say that they do know. Well, I don't think they know. I think that's the whole point. I think that's the reason why they can't. I'm sure they maybe can. I mean, it's debatable about manual changes in the past. Trust me. I mean, there'll be people out there screaming at me going, yeah, they've definitely done it before. And it's not quite that simple. We used to FPL Statistics, who was one of the OGs who was doing it before live FPL, used to provide very good explanations, like post hoc explanations kind of things for why things had happened. And sometimes the algorithm would miss something significant, or it wouldn't count something about free hit or wildcard transfer or something like that, more complex than that it might miss. They don't know because, as far as we understand it, which I'm pretty sure is true and will remain true, is that the price changes are based on an algorithm that involves player transfers in and out. And so lots can change in terms of player transfers in and out in the last hour, right up until the point that they change. So as far as we know, which I assume is still true, there's a threshold at, say, midnight, and that's when it changes. So on that basis, no one can know for sure who's actually going to change. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, some players might be way over the threshold, but they don't know for certain that X player who's about to rise or looks likely to rise isn't suddenly going to be sold by 20,000 people for whatever reason, then he won't rise. So there is that. So then I guess you have to assume that they now have their own kind of algorithm if they didn't already have it, and that they know all of those little holes that might have been missing in the past, those little things, those mistakes that might have happened won't happen now. And if anything, actually, it tells you that they either didn't or don't plan to in the future do any manual changes with players, because now they're
Interesting.
their very own predictor is on their own website, so we can't have someone just randomly who wasn't even in the vicinity of changing, which has happened before, and we can all remember a few occasions. I mean, there was last season of someone at like 40 or 60%, and that is very annoying because we rely on these third party apps. So anyway, that's all interesting. I mean, I hope that it doesn't take away too much of that interesting aspect of the game about because I think it's only fair. I think it's fair, you know, and I prefer a fairer game because I want us all to have that information about making those decisions. And I think it will still help more the people who are more engaged or the people who are more kind of attuned to this sort of thing, because I think people are bad at judging, you know, the importance of team value and making emotional decisions. Whereas people who have been doing it for years, I'd like to think that myself, and we're all still vulnerable to it. But I'd like to think that I'm better now at controlling those emotions and those cognitive biases and not moving on a player just because they're going up or down in price. So if anything, actually, yeah, again, thinking about it for the first time, that's one advantage that I think we should have now. I think it should give us a further advantage. The other thing is, I always refer to it as an illness. I mean, it's so common. That's a very offensive thing to say, but I do refer to it as an illness because I think it's a real terrible character trait that so many people have, where they are misers, absolute raging misers who wouldn't buy, you know, their mates a pint in the pub if their life depended on it. The sort of guys, you know, they turn at the pub and get their own beer and then join you because they would never. The idea of buying everyone a pint strikes them with terrible fear. And loads of people are struck with this illness where you're just obsessed with the price and value of anything. Don't spend any money. I mean, I could go on and on with that. So, you know, we all know these people, but it's such a common thing. And so even though it's not real money, loads of people will be struck by that. You know, a serious chunk of people, when they see a price going up or down, will make a move. Now, they'll do it as well. There'll be a lot more of moves made, even if they've already made the transfers. So people have got these two emotional things to deal with now, whereby, because a lot of people make early transfers, say they don't even know about player price changes or when they're going to happen, or they're not interested. A huge chunk, probably the biggest chunk of transfers are made because ultimately people watch the football on the weekend, the casuals, the millions of people, they see the football, they know who they want or they don't want. They might be a bit pissed off with the result or whatever, and they don't want to think about it all week. That's what we do. We want to get rid of decisions. We don't want to have to think about it. We want to rid ourselves of that decision, of that stress, and just make the move. So then we can just move on with our lives. So loads of people will just continue to do that. But now they're faced with the additional thing of price changes. So, and very visible price changes. So yeah, I think that we will see it being more volatile in terms of price changes, because I think we will see more transfers. I think we will see more hits. And people will struggle with that. So sorry, that was a bit of a rant before I move on to real-time updates. Did you want to say anything else on that?
No, it's a really interesting point, actually, because it makes me think, if anything, as you say, one has their own reflections when you hear the announcement straight away. But the overriding feeling I have in terms of how it affects us, so to speak, as people who, let's be honest, anyone watching this or listening to it is going to be a sort of sicko, so to speak. So it's probably going to make you double down on what you already do in some ways. I mean, I think for me, as someone who, you know, likes to try and build in a little bit of switching off into the process, because obviously we're really busy doing this, of course, as well as playing the game and that sort of thing. It's probably going to lead to a little bit more of a doubling down of maybe after the first month anyway, of just, you know, doing the standard, waiting for Friday and letting other people complain about the knocks that they hear about on Friday morning in the press conferences and that sort of thing. But yeah, no, I think it's an interesting point. Probably won't greatly change our gameplay, but it's just interesting to see, you know, how it's going to affect the sheer number of people early on. As you say, people like, I'm going to say my first shout out to Les. Hope you're well. Now, Les, father-in-law, anyone listening, he's the kind of guy, I think, who might not have necessarily known about third-party price change sites, but now, as well as you know, storming a march on me and being right behind me in the family mini league, he's going to have that in his armory as well. So so perhaps he will look at it. A few people were talking about our reflections on this. Andrew Barton has said, misers must be talking about Yorkshire folk. How much? I was actually immediately thinking price change wise. I'm not going to say anything else. I'm just going to say evening to Jossie if he's watching. You know, keep that trigger happy finger, keep it, you know, in its holster, please, because we don't want you doing anything silly if we can avoid it. But other things. Oh, actually, we haven't talked about I mean, I don't really use. I'm hoping we hear a little bit about what Live FPL in particular are up to this year, and whether they are part of this process or whether they're still going to be doing their thing. Because obviously, it's a terrific site. I don't obviously look at live updates particularly, but hopefully they are not put out by this. That would be a real shame. Bonus points, I think, are the other thing I haven't talked about very much. I'm not going to read through the whole because there are more details, etc. But a slight shot in the arm for fullbacks, wingers, to a lesser extent goalkeepers. So I think it has made that a little bit more balanced to a degree. Nothing shocking, nothing seismic in its changes. But I think for me, the biggest takeaway, just looking at the structure and sort of bonus point related, is, DEFCON is broadly still here. And I do think, sorry, it is here, of course it's here, but it's still very much part of the process. And now it's part of what we assume is the medium term way of playing the game. And I do think generally, we'll talk about this in terms of the player picks and that sort of thing and our overall strategy, but I think maybe the needle was swung a bit too far against it, and people have stopped remembering that 4 at the back is a perfectly legitimate strategy and that sort of thing. I think most drafts that I've seen, neither of us are big immediately putting a draft together, and we'll talk about that later, but I haven't seen many 4 and 5s at the back or anything like that. So it'll be quite interesting to see if that goes that direction when people do their sort of serious draft. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah. Yeah. Remind me to come back to real-time updates, because you know what, you got me thinking about them now, so I have to get it out of my head. Yeah, I mean, the 4 at the back thing, I mean, yeah, or 5 at the back, or whatever you want to say. I mean, the same conversation comes up every year, but it comes up for a reason, and it's like, I see, for example, a lot of people saying, and it's kind of, and we go through these stages, and I see for a lot of people now saying, for example, yeah, okay, but we look at these 6 million strikers, but why would you get one over the 6 million defender type thing? And the answer's simple, really, to be honest. It depends, by the way, so there's more complex than that. So I'll come on that for a second. But for me, because obviously it depends on your squad and how much money you've got spare. But for a lot of people, and for example, for me, in the way I can envisage my team going, yeah, it's pretty simple. I mean, it's because of the price constraints, and it's because of bench boost, and it's because of what we have available, and and the chips and so on. And so obviously, it's really simple. I mean, if you're talking about a 6 million defender versus a 6 million striker, well, obviously, a 6 million defender plus your minimum 4.5 striker is 10.5 million for one player. But we've got 4 million defenders, potentially DEFCON guys. So if you get a 4 million DEFCON defender and a 6 million striker, you've got 2 players for 10 million. So 2 players for 10 million versus one good player for 10.5 million. And that's the simple kind of maths of it. That's the point. So when you then consider, are you going to use bench boost? Because we now have double chips, which hasn't been the case. It's a bit more complicated. So it's a bit more, it's a bit more important to have a playing bench. So, if you want to maximize the money that's in your squad, then very simply, you're going to have those defenders, and you're going to have 4 million defenders, whether you have 1, 2, or even 3, whatever. And you can get the playing strikers. Yeah. So what was I going to say? I can't remember what I was going to say then, but obviously we've got, I mean, yeah, like I say, so that depends. So if, for example, like, it wouldn't surprise me if the optimal team, that isn't necessarily as, in terms of when review and the models come out, that isn't necessarily the case, because if that's the sort of question and you're really stretching your budget, for example, at the moment, that might mean, having Haaland, Bruno, and Palmer, or whatever. Haaland, Bruno, Gabriel, 3 big hitters at least. It depends how important you think it is to get those players in. You know what I mean? So clearly, it could be easier if an optimal team. It might be that an optimal team doesn't have someone like Palmer in it, and then it changes things, considerably. Maybe even one of the other big hitters. So then you can get these 6 million defenders in and still have a 6 million striker on the bench, for example. You know what I mean? So of course, yeah, the 6 million defenders, for example, the DEFCON guys, it is big, and it's just all about timing in the season, because I'm sure we will get to that point when we've got more money. We don't have a bench boost to use. It's been a few weeks past. And we can see which those guys are, which ones are really particularly good for DEFCON and which ones, you know what I mean? So Yeah, I mean that's why at the moment for me it hasn't really changed, because again, I know we're not discussing drafts today, but mine is kind of pretty stretched, and I do, for me as well, it's more about getting on guys and being able to sort of move off the expensive players potentially in midfield, for example, a Palmer. So yeah, what about you? Have you thought anything about the shape, the formation?
Yeah, I mean, actually, to be honest with you, it's more or less all I think about at this stage. I don't. I think people get drawn into these kind of conversations about. I don't know. You already see. I understand why people do it, and it's absolutely fine. And saying, for example, that a certain 6 million midfielder is locked, or a certain 7 million midfielder is locked, or sort of focusing on the minutiae of the particular players, I feel like is unless they are structural indicators, so to speak, it doesn't really matter. To be honest with you, like 5 million. There are several 5 million. Someone mentioned a 5 million defender in the chat. I mean, it could easily be another one. For example, if I had that spot in my team, etc., etc. It's much more about the shape and the formation that I'm looking for at the moment. So I don't tend to overly focus on the players at this point because there's still so much to be learned. I mean, we don't know. I mean, a player, for example, that I won't be picking. But as just an example of this is someone like a Morgan Rogers. I feel sorry for Morgan Rogers. He always gets a bit of a dunking on this podcast. He's a perfectly good player, of course he is. But because I wouldn't be sure necessarily where he plays, his role, and indeed whether he would necessarily start game week 1, right? Because he played, played 90 minutes in the last 2 games of the World Cup, I think, from memory anyway. So that's just an example of someone I wouldn't be sort of drawn into the minutiae of that particular pick, but the structural element and being able to hop off players is really interesting. I mean, it's always the answer for me when people talk about the kind of no Haaland approach and no Bruno, etc. I don't feel this way about Gabriel, but we'll come to that. It's just that ability to maneuver, particularly as you say with flying price changes early in the season, etc. You don't want to be in that position where you're having to scramble using the wild card earlier than you wanted to, and all the rest of it. So, yeah, no, much more about formation and structure, and much less about players. I don't really see the players at this point in time. If that makes sense.
No, I'm exactly the same. I know exactly what you're saying, and it's for me. I mean, I'm a little bit different, I think, because I kind of just think about the players actually in a sense, but and the formation. So what I'm saying is, for example, I guess I don't know, like I was listening to The Wire earlier today, for example, and Praz was saying that his approach is not looking at any of the things that we've just said, and he kind of likes to just look at the fixtures. And I don't do that. And you think, his kind of strategy is kind of strategy and his fixtures and where the swings are and where he wants to use chips, and that's absolutely fine because there isn't a right or wrong way. It's just different. People have different approaches. Yeah. Right? So I don't. Obviously, I'm going to look at the fixtures in terms of when I look at the picks, but it's secondary at the moment to picks, and structure and formation, just like you say, and being able to, and flexibility. And it's always knowing that we just, it's acknowledging that we don't know what we don't know at the start, and yeah, I mean, again, just to that point, in terms of, for example, a 6 million striker, it's that maneuverability. I know I don't want to be too obvious, but it's that kind of maneuverability. For example, we'll talk about the players in a minute, but there are lots, for example, of 6 million strikers, lots of them, and any one of them could be very good. There could be a couple of them that are very good, and so I like that price point. I like to be able to have at least someone there. And if I feel, let's say, I feel really good about someone like João Pedro or a Thiago, I want that price point, then suddenly I've got 3 up front because Haaland's in, and that's absolutely fine. So I think about who I feel really good about as a player at the same time as thinking how I can make the most out of that squad and that structure. And that is a big change this season in terms of these points that we're talking about. A big change that struck me most actually before anything else was realizing that all of the promoted defenders are 4.0.
Yeah, incredible. Yeah.
And I think that's a great change because they haven't been in the game at all. I mean, it's weird though for me because every year that I've played this game, because of my approach and kind of certain price points and maybe having faith in some expensive midfielders generally, and that kind of thing, and wanting to be on those guys, wanting to prove myself from a little bit from the price changes and so on, and that maneuverability about having the money in the 11. I'm always been trying to find the 4.0 defenders, and you can usually by the time the season starts find 2, maybe even 3. Could even be 1, you know what I mean? But that was a real part of the game, wasn't it? And obviously Lundstrom broke the game that season because he literally played as number 10 and he was the 4.0. That was hilarious. But that's a big game changer because obviously, the DEFCON guys just kind of obliterated the 4.0 defenders. So we no longer have to search for the 4.0 gems. They're just all 4.0. And it just makes it even more reason for me to kind of look at those guys in the squad. It just makes it even easier. It makes it even easier to justify for me having 1 or 2 of those and having, because you can still have a couple of those DEFCON prices, those DEFCON defenders, whether you've got Virgil or whether you have got Gabriel or whether you've got 5.5s. There's still defenders that you think could be good for DEFCON. And we just don't really, a lot of guys, we don't know what they're going to look like DEFCON wise, new managers, new clubs.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think the other structural point that you're kind of, I'm sure you would kind of lead into this anyway, but I think it makes, well, the temptation has been set for better or worse as well for really thinking carefully about whether one goes for the early bench boost in this scenario. Because I think, now that this is the only time of year where you're realistically going to cut out an hour or so to think about which promoted teams, which promoted defenders, etc., are any good. If I'm honest with you, the one I know best by an absolute long shot is Issa Diop, and we'll talk about him a bit later on. But it's just simply because I've watched him a fair bit, and obviously he played the World Cup as well. But I know that he's got a reasonable amount of goal threat, and I know that he's incredibly error prone as well. But nevertheless, he's someone that I rarely know the 4 million defenders well enough to kind of really have any thoughts on. Whereas this time, I don't know about you, I know Leif Davis, I know Issa Diop, I know Greaves, I know O'Shea, for example. I'm not saying go for Ipswich. Less so about Hull and Coventry and that sort of thing. But nevertheless, this is it's a good opportunity to look at that. So this is something that I definitely want to talk about a little bit more, because I know that there's one of the managers coming on for a chat in the next week or two. It has a real plan for this himself. But what are your thoughts about sort of chips early on? Was there anything you wanted to say at this stage about your own process? Because I do think I'm more tempted with it than I usually would be. I know we all flirt with it a bit early on, but
yeah, well, don't forget, because I think we sometimes forget, even the way you've just said it, we've only ever had 2 chips once, ever.
Yeah.
So you say you're more tempted than you normally are. I think people forget.
Oh, true. Yeah, of course.
The landscape is completely different. We're all getting used to it, and I think that's really important to remember. I mean, first of all, the first thing I want to say is, my approach doesn't mean make it right, but this is linked to the point what I said, where I like to start with the players, because I always think I just start with the players that I want in my team, and obviously with that the structure and the flexibility and so on, because that's always just bigger and more important to me. Even if you're playing to wildcard in game week 4, you've still got 3 whole weeks before that. And it's going to be crazy on the price changes, and there's crazy opportunity for points. So the chips are also secondary in that sense to me. A bit like I just said about not looking at the fixtures. It's very important for me. The way I personally believe that they should be played is to not let chips get in the way of who you think are good picks. Like, how can you get those chips not necessarily out of the way? You do want to get points from them, but how can you use them such that they disrupt your team as little as possible? That's how I like to do it, because I think it's more important. If I was to say, build my entire team around this idea, or make lots of sacrifices around this idea, I have a brilliant bench in game week 2 or game week 1 or whatever, and it meant not having someone I really believed in, say it was Cole Palmer or I don't know, or Morgan Gibbs-White or someone like that, someone that I really believed, or a couple of price points that I really wanted in the 11. It's just not enough for me to, playing a bench boost. I mean, anything could go wrong with a bench boost. 2 people could get randomly injured. They could not play. It could be disastrous. Then all of a sudden, you've not got a squad to deal with the first few weeks. You've got to wildcard. That's the thing with wildcarding as well, about sort of planning it. So I don't really want to do that. Yes, I might wildcard in game week 4 like I did last season. It might be game week 5, it might be game 6. But I'd like to keep the option open that maybe my team's doing really well in game week 4, because I don't think there's fixture swings. Side note, I don't think there's any great fixture swings anyway. But you might want to keep that option open. So there are lots of things you're doing there. If you're making loads of sacrifices with your bench boost, you're not picking players you believe in that you want to play, that you might want to squeeze into the team to get a bench boost. You are committing to other chips like wildcards. It's a really, really big bet. For what? For not much. Because, for example, again, this is a single week bench boost. If it is someone like Cole Palmer and he does what he tends to do very often, which is get 2 goals or a goal and assist, and he gets 13 points, that's the same as what you're going to get from a decent bench boost. except you've already got that player and you're keeping them then for all the next weeks, and you get all the price rises, and you're in control, and you're able to save transfers. You're not forced into an early wildcard. So for me, it's secondary. I want to look at how can I be really happy with my structure and the players, and does an almost serendipitous bench boost fall into that? And
yeah. Because that's how that's how we've handled it in the standard one chip season anyway, isn't it? Really, is not getting drawn into this scenario where you're having to carry these god awful picks for ages and build too heavily around it.
But it is it's a huge difference between what it always used to be for all those other previous seasons, which it was almost always a double game week bench boost. Exactly. Coventry, I'll get onto that point in a minute, but it was always a double game week bench boost. This is a single game week bench boost. Of course, it's a great chip, but it's not a game changing. It's you're going to be better off in the long term for the season if you've really got the players that you wanted, or you're really hitting those, and you don't have to make those transfers, and you have got the price changes and so on. Some slight things with that I'm thinking about, kind of potentially doing things differently. So game week 2 jumps out straight away for me, and at the moment the game launched, that was like, okay, because I'm looking at the 4.0s, and somebody said they're all thinging. You see, and these guys from Coventry and the DEFCON defenders, and Coventry, for example, have got Hull at home. Hull have got Coventry as well, vice versa. So that's really nice. Yeah. So, and that's one of them where I'm not interested in overthinking it, because again, there's loads of unknowns. So people might say, oh yeah, but they're both from Championship, or Hull are good, or Coventry. To me, that's all way too much. That's just like way too much thinking. Like, again, don't let it disrupt you. So if you can, it's game week 2, it's a nice close proximity, so you can get these guys in, play it pretty quickly. For example, two DEFCON defenders from Coventry, or one and then a fullback or whatever, against Hull. If they don't win and they get 2 points, so what? It was still completely logical. You can still get loads of players who play. So to me, that's really, really nice. Now, in line with that is a lot of people are talking about early wildcards. Now you think about my season, last season, the way I played it in terms of the wildcard and what that means for this team. So one thing I might do differently, another thing that's different, by the way, in the game, so correct me if I'm wrong, is I think this is we don't have a 4.0 keeper. So correct me if I'm wrong. I think last season, I don't know if we already knew about it, but we obviously had Dubravka. We might have had him from day one or something like that. We might have had one from day one. But I wildcarded last year in game week 4. And I think that meant that I bench boosted in game week 6 or something like that. And I didn't wildcard again until what week did we wildcard? Was it game week 32?
Yes. Yeah, it was, yeah.
So game week 4 to game week 32. And believe me, from someone who did that last season, it's a bizarre season, and it changes a lot of things. You really want to free yourself from the shackles of whatever that looks like, because we all did, and we all still wildcarded into subsequently bench boost. Even the people who wildcarded in game week 6 bench boosted in game week 8 or whatever it was. I think you did, or something like that. A bit later. Last year we had a 4.0 keeper, and we don't, and I think that's really significant because, again, if you want to maximize how much money you've got, I don't want to wildcard in game week 4 or 5, for example, and into having 2 goalkeepers and sacrificing at least 0.5 for what is effectively the rest of the season. Don't forget the structure of the season is the same this year. So we've got the doubles and blanks are in the same game week 32, 33, 34. So you know what I'm saying? So and that wildcard in game week 4, yeah, okay, it was a good squad, but I might not want a squad that big. I might not want, you're going to be with them for a long time. Which also means, do you want that 4.0 defender? Do you want a 4.0 keeper on the bench, and so on? Personally, I will. So that's one difference for me this year, is that I may well, have 2 goalkeepers at the start, because of course the first 4 weeks or 5 weeks or even 6 before your wildcard is fuck all compared to game week 4 to game week 32. It's just a tiny little insignificant, it's nothing. So yeah, for me, it's it's kind of even more obvious that you want to think about that bench boost this year, especially when there's an opportunity for it, and play into it game week 1, a wildcard out of it, especially if there are no 4.0 keepers, etc.
Just on that very quickly, and I'm going to get absolutely slaughtered for saying this, but the interest of just 4 million goalkeepers, because we won't have any room to talk about this sort of separately. I know that there's a conversation, isn't there, at the moment, that I think the goalkeeper at Coventry last year, someone will have to confirm it in the chat, I think was the guy that was on loan from Brighton, Carl Rushworth, who of FML, FPL, love him. So listen to that because they do talk about him. But he is back at Brighton and he's 4.5. I don't believe it's that clear who's the Coventry goalkeeper at the moment, who's 4 or 4.5. But all I was going to say, and I understand why no one will do this, but there is a legitimate argument for, okay, game week 2, Coventry against Hull at home. You've got 2 defenders in that game. You can go with that. In another position, let's say midfield, etc., you've got I think there are 1 or 2 possible playing 4.5 midfielders this year, certainly 5. So there are 1 or 2. I mean, I've got the Hull's Slater at the moment, who 1 or 2 people have said plays. Plus he has an amusing first name. Who was it? Oh yeah, maybe not. Reagan Slater. Did he play for Sheffield United? He's got a Sheffield United shirt on, and that's the.
Oh, has he? I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway, all I was going to say is your point is quite interesting to me, like about like the value of that goalkeeper slot of whether you have 2 4.5s or a 4.5 and a 4. If you really wanted to protect your finances and you just wanted to play 3 outfield players and not bother, that's okay as well. You could. I know that no one will agree with me, but it's what are you doing if you're giving up sort of 6 points potentially at tops? You could do that. I'm not suggesting you will, but yeah, it's a way of doing it.
No, absolutely, I agree, and then that links to kind of like you said, the other point. Like people are going, oh, you need to, for your bench boost, you need to find a DEFCON midfielder, for example, and they all start at 5.5, and I'd be like, well, you don't need to. Again, I would prioritize the players. If someone plays at 4.5, and then there's a guy who's likely to get DEFCON at 5.5, and they're both my third bench fodder, then I'm 100% personally. This is just me. I'm personally 100% going for the 4.5 guy who apparently gets no DEFCON. You know what I mean? Because the 5.5 guy could easily get no DEFCON. He could, and obviously he could get sent off and so on, and because he's got an extra kind of 1 or 2 EV or something. Maybe my 4.5 guy scores, but if he plays, if he guarantees to play, anything can happen. Get 90 minutes. That's absolutely fine. Will I let that dictate that? Will I let that million mean that I get like kind of I don't know, a 5.5 defender instead of Van Dijk, or I don't get Gibbs White or I don't get Palmer? Absolutely not. No chance. Just get someone who plays and play the bench boost.
I'm just out of interest because someone has raised this in the chat. I'll just throw it here. But Harry saying bench boost game week 2 with triple Coventry is madness to me. Rather go game week 1 with players from established teams. I mean, I think it's an interesting point, Harry. You can absolutely do that. I think lots of people are looking at game week 1. I saw a draft from Fran, who hopefully will be on FPL. Fran, who will be on the guesting with us in the next couple of weeks, hopefully.
Yeah, sorry, go on.
No, all I was going to say is, well, I would just throw back the question of, well, who are those established teams? Are they 5.5 million midfielders instead of 4.5 million midfielders? Are they 4.5 defenders instead of 4 million defenders? So it's just how much you value the pricing, I think, is the issue there. Because usually at this stage, you have to kind of find a few spots to cut to the bone if you want your Palmer or your Gabriel instead of another Arsenal defender, or whatever it is that you want to do. So that's the only thing there. Sorry, Dan.
Yeah, and I was hoping I'd been more clear. Like, again, I'm saying that because the structure of my team is such that I will have at least 1, maybe 2 4.0 defenders. End of. And so that doesn't work for game week 1 because unfortunately that does mean you want to get Coventry and that. So that's absolutely fine. If you've got, like I said, it could be totally optimal to just spread that cash and you've got loads of money to spend, and then of course, do whatever you want. Bench boost 1's great if you've got good players all over the 15 and you're happy, then that's absolutely fine. It's just for me, I'm looking for one that's of least disruption, and I probably will have, because there are players I want that are expensive, so I probably will want to take that. And obviously, the slight other point is game week 1 is always a bit wild. Like, you don't know for sure what's going to come out. Suddenly a manager you're convinced is going to play a certain player, and it's like, oh my God, I did not expect him to play him or start him, or I thought that guy was definitely going to be back from the World Cup because he's been playing in the last couple of games, but he just isn't. And you know what I mean? I don't know. You do kind of know an awful lot more by game week 2. I know this takes a few weeks to settle down, but you know an awful lot more in game week 2 than you do in game week 1. So that's the other thing to think about.
No, good point. Lots to kind of mull over. We will come back to these kind of themes and issues in future pod weeks, because we've got some exciting guests lined up for the pre-season period. And actually, I should do this now so that before you get upset with us for warbling on as usual. Yeah, I think it's obviously we've got some exciting changes coming in this summer, but of course, as you can probably imagine, a humble little pod like ourselves. This is a great time of year to hopefully discover us, and if you don't mind liking, sharing, and subscribing, that sort of thing, and putting the word on the street. To see whether more people will enter the last resort bar. I won't talk about this at length, but because I'll come to it at the end of the pod as well. But I think it's worth me mentioning as well, we are just changing the structure of our approach a little bit this year. So this pod will remain hopefully a kind of a once a week affair, where we're able to put this out there for free, so to speak, and for everyone to listen, which we're really excited about continuing, because this will be our... Well, it's weird because our first season was a part season, but this is our third season or second full season, so to speak. And we were really excited about hitting 1K last year on YouTube, that sort of thing. So it's relatively bijou, but it's nice if we can get a few more people enjoying us. But also we're looking at doing a few things different structure-wise. So we are going to be opening a Patreon offer as well. So what we will be looking at doing, it's just going to be really simple, really clean, because we understand that people have got lots of kind of different things challenging for their time, and different memberships that you could sign up for, and all that sort of thing. So we understand that it can get a bit complicated, but if you are interested in supporting us, I think the tier that you've decided to create for this, I thought it was quite clever, Danny. What's the name of
it? Is it Last Orders?
Last Orders, yeah. So Last Orders at the Last Resort Bar it's a one-stop shop. So there's just one tier at the moment, and we'll be putting it out there live in the coming days, certainly after this video. The plan is basically we have there'll be an extra video for those who want to kind of sign up for that. There'll be some weekly team reveals, extra strategy posts and thoughts, and there'll be access to a Last Resort Discord as well. So if you are interested in joining that, it'll be a fun little gang. Don't get me wrong, I know that there are lots of other things out there as well, but if you're happy to spend a bit more time in our good company, then we'd really be honored by that. So we'll put that out there, and we'll see how that flies. And if it goes well, we'll look to improve it year on year and that sort of thing. So it's a new thing for us, but we've been planning it over the summer. But this will remain, so you don't need to worry. It's not we're not going to suddenly start peddling our wares and selling mankinis and beers that we don't like. Although frankly, if someone offered us to promote a beer that we didn't like, I don't know, we judge each on its merits, that sort of thing. But there you go. Do you know what? Earlier, Danny, I was thinking about how to explain this kind of new offer and the new Patreon, that sort of thing. I was thinking it through the mind of a kind of young man, kind of perhaps looking at an attractive woman for the first time. Is simply just enjoying the visage of that woman enough, or would you like to spend a little bit longer in her company? Well, anyway, let's not go down that line. But Last Resort, if you, for an extra small fee, you never know. Maybe you get a little bit more. I shouldn't have said that.
It's good. No, it's good.
Let's just move on.
No, you did a really good job there, actually. No, it's good. I hadn't thought about how to do that either. But no, I appreciate any feedback. If anyone's got any ideas about what else, maybe something else should be included, or to do, we don't, we're sort of learning as we go. So if there should be something else that we should do or include, it should be something different. But yeah, it should be pretty cool, especially Discord. I mean, it's hard because there's so many Discords these days, aren't there? And you're sort of in and out. But it'd be cool to have our own little Last Resort lounge, and then we can just kind of focus a bit chat there.
I mean, I should say I won't reveal everything now, like that lovely lady in the bar that we just talked about. But I was just looking through. I've been building it a bit over the summer, and as well as a Last Resort lounge, I have created. This is a little treat to self, but there is a little channel on there called Culture Corner where I can hang with sort of jazz wankers and that sort of thing. But you can always talk about the Odyssey and stuff like that. That's absolutely fine. Do you know what? Actually, just before we go on, I haven't actually seen that yet. I'll do that the weekend. But overheard a couple of old ladies on the bus a few days ago, and they were like, "Oh, have you seen that film? Have you seen the Odyssey?" This is anyway.
That's pretty good.
Thank you. And then 2 questions later, they're just like, "Oh no, no, I haven't," or "Yes, I have," etc. So like, "Do you know whether it's funny?" And I was like, "Funny? Do you know the story?" I was like, I don't think it's going to be funny, but there you go.
Oh my god!
I was just wondering whether they're on my bookshelf. I am. I think I talked to Danny about this a few weeks ago, but I mean, despite you might not believe it, but I grew up fully working class in the traditional sense. My dad's a carpet fitter, all of this kind of stuff. But for some strange reason, I don't know, it must have been bumped on the head. I've become one of those sort of people, sort of aspirational culture types, that sort of thing, and moved into a different. So I've read all of those kind of Greek tragedies when I was about, I don't know, so a stupid age where I should have been having fun. So it's a strange thing, but yes. Anyway, enjoy. We can do a review on the Discord once I've got around to seeing that. There we go. Anyway, let's go back to proper FPL stuff. Hopefully that old lady on the bus enjoyed the film. I've lost the screens.
It'll be impossible to timestamp this episode now, won't it, by the way? I was just trying to think quickly. I was just trying to really think quickly because, again, I don't got anything to say now, but the live rank thing, what do you think that's going to look like? And are you just going to look now at rank? The live updates thing that you had on the last screen?
Yeah. It's a good question.
Yeah, it probably won't look much different, will it? Other than it'll change. I mean, it's going to be weird. So you just refresh it, I suppose. The overall rank and all your mini leagues will just change all the time. That's quite heavy load on the app, probably, isn't it? But
my instinct is like I said, with the price changes, really, I can imagine it will be almost like a double down scenario. I spoke to I think it was one of your mates actually. I think was it Benji, the guy who's on Twitter anyway, and he was considering doing kind of no rank season this season, and he saw the changes and thought, "Oh, I can't be done with that now."
Yeah, it's weird when
I will say, like, it takes a certain kind of mental discipline. You achieve it in different elements of your thinking, but for me, like, it can be on a screen in front of me and I wouldn't see it. I know it sounds weird, but if you got the FPL portal or whatever you want to call it in front of you, and I know on the right hand side it contains the ranks and all that kind of stuff, I can go on that page and not look at it. I've sort of trained my brain to do it.
Yeah.
That said, I haven't decided yet. I'll need to think about it. I mean, if the chat has any views about what they'd like to see, I'm kind of game for whatever, really. Maybe I will, but basically, it doesn't play into my thinking in how I enjoy the game at the moment. That's all. But,
it's going to be a weird one, isn't it? Because I'm just trying to think like how it affects the game and how it affects how people play, or how and actually, I suppose for most people it won't really change much. And I think that's because if you think about it, like the people who are really serious about the game, us saddos and everyone who just like takes it really seriously and plays it all the time, we obviously have kind of an element of social identity tied to the game, don't we? Like we have, self-identity tied to the game in some way. Like we think of ourselves as good FPL managers. We want to be judged and looked at by others as like a decent manager or whatever. You know what I mean? Like we just do. All of us do. And so there's kind of a more personal identity tied to that. And I think that's why many people struggle with, and I'm not saying it's the same thing as your point of looking at general rank, because that's a different thing. That's more about kind of strategy, isn't it? And not letting it affect you. But obviously, it can affect a lot of people. That's a problem. It was kind of a problem when Live first started, Live FPL, because people would start thinking, I can see you trying really not to laugh now. Oh, you're just holding a yawn back.
No. It's because I've just remembered that the badge chat that we often use is obviously wrong.
Oh my God, Richie! This is not a good advert for Patreon so far. We've got a league code that's like half on the screen, half off it. We've got last season's teams 25.
Let me see if I can get it up.
Let's talk about Wolves in a minute at some point, or West Ham. You just wanted West Ham. You saw West Ham and wanted to talk about them, didn't you?
It never happened.
Well, while you're doing that,
Jared is back.
No, but you know what I'm saying. So just while you're doing that, it is interesting because obviously most people don't think about FPL that way. Most people have just got kind of more, rather than a kind of internal intrinsic motivation towards like just feeling good about themselves. I suppose most people, it's more kind of an external reward, and they have Maybe they just have mini leagues, or they have a bit of banter, or maybe they have cash leagues. And so it's kind of more of an external driver, isn't it? Like, I don't like if you've got a cash league, but you don't take FPL super seriously, and you see a live rank update that you go first, and then someone else scores 3 goals and you go 5th. I don't think it's quite the same thing. I don't think you'd be heartbroken and, wanting to, fill out some research on the mental health effects of fantasy football and stuff. I don't think they'll be that bothered. But it's going to be quite interesting to me, that, because I think, do you know what I'm saying? Like, I think live updates kind of differentially affect casual and serious managers very differently, as you'd expect. So it'd be interesting talking to sort of your casual friends that are in your mini leagues about what they're saying about that when it happens. Anyway, it's not very interesting. But yeah, don't worry if you can't get that slide up, Rich. We'll I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's fine. It will be up in just a second, but yeah, definitely don't wait for it. Well, do you know what I would quite like to do, by the way, is that we'll kick off. We're just gonna have our. You've probably seen it before, but we often do a bit of badge chat, and what I mean by that is it's kind of a go round the grounds, so to speak, a go around the teams, and we'll just do a little bit of our opening kind of thoughts on what's on offer in terms of pricing, what our thoughts are for these particular teams at this point in time. I know that that's a pretty common structure at this point in time, but it's because in future kind of pods we want to maybe break it down a little bit more and think about each position and strategies and that sort of thing. So this is a good way of kind of getting ourselves in gear, because some people listening here will have absorbed a few discussions already, but others will just be re-entering the fray if they're back from, I don't know, where would one be on holiday? Sardinia. There you go. Back from there. And this is the first thing that they've listened to and that sort of thing. Never been there, actually. Anyway, this is another conversation.
No, neither have I.
Yes, but no, I will in a moment have the badge up. Should we anyway? It's obvious anyway. We're going to start, aren't we, realistically, with Arsenal. First of all, anyway. Whilst I'm sorting that out, I don't suppose you want to just give your initial kind of appraisal of what you think in terms of how interested you are in those picks, because I think the obvious place to start is, okay, I suppose there's two things really. One is the nature of the defenders that you might be interested in, whether of the big three that people are talking about of premiums in each position, whether Gabriel is worth the kind of outlay at this point in time. Obviously the top scoring defender from last year's game. And then of course you've got this slightly odd situation where with players in midfield like Rice, etc., and Saka, who, whilst impressive at the World Cup on some level, also neither of which look particularly fit and might not be back until late. So what's your initial dive there? And I will join you as soon as I've sorted this out.
Yeah. It's a tough one with Arsenal. I think I just feel like, rightly or wrongly, you don't want to make that same mistake twice, because I remember last season I should have got on more of them, or from game week 1, earlier on or whatever. And it's just kind of that thing where we knew Arsenal were just a really strong defensive team, and then they just rack up the points early on, and a lot of us missed a lot of those points for the first 3 or 4 weeks. And you sort of say to yourself, you don't want to do that again. But I do feel like I don't feel terrified of Arsenal at this point in terms of going into game week 1. Like you say, they don't have Saliba. That is a big blow. I do think that players like Rice, Saka, I generally expect all the sort of players really that have been involved in the World Cup to just play from game week 1. I'd be surprised if they didn't. I think they'd have to be in a bad way not to. They'll just really want to play. They will have a 2 or 3 week holiday. Obviously, I think the difference is I don't really know what that looks like for them. I don't know if they'll be all right for a few weeks. I mean, because you have to think about what does it do to your body? You're on a very different trajectory, because everybody else finishes ages ago. Like, again, think about, I don't know, I keep going to Chelsea and think about Palmer or João Pedro, people who were left home, didn't go to the World Cup. They finish ages ago. They go on holiday straight away after the season. They get to chill out. They go on loads of posh hotels and beaches and gorgeous restaurants for like, how long? 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks. Ages. Proper reset. And then they come back and they start to slowly build themselves up mentally, physically. They start to train for a couple of weeks, and they start to play some indoor games, and they're playing friendlies, and they're playing 4 or 5 friendlies, and it really builds up, and it gets you in that peak condition game week 1, and as I say, physically and mentally. So it's just so different for players who played in the World Cup, where it's like, right, the day after the World Cup, probably, they're like, the managers will be like, right, lads, the season starts in 5 weeks. You need to be back in 3 weeks. And then it's like, so you're just trying to jam in a holiday. You're having a quick holiday and trying to relax as much as you can for 2-3 weeks. And then you're back in training. And you're probably still on a bit of a downer. Your body's probably still shutting down a bit or just wanting a bit longer. I don't know. So you're just in a completely different place. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with those players. And so I do expect them to be back straight away. But I don't know whether I don't expect them to be fully fit unless it's just like a short break and they just kind of pick up where they left off and maybe they get tired at Christmas and so on. So yeah, I mean, but also with Arsenal, they've got a very good first fixture, Coventry at home. And then I know they're top of the fixture. It's difficult because they're top of the fixture. And again, when the models come out and all that sort of stuff, I've not really looked at Solo actually because that's already started. But I'm sure that they'll be very high as well in terms of projected points and in terms of the odds of those fixtures and odds of clean sheets. They'll be top. But Villa away is never a good fixture. I don't like Villa away game week 2. It's not a good fixture. Chelsea at home isn't a great fixture. I think Chelsea, yeah, it's all right. I mean, we'll talk about Chelsea when we get there. But I do think Chelsea are one of the teams that I would expect to be one of the most improved teams. I know everyone's probably said that. So I don't think Chelsea at home is a very good fixture. Then they've got Sunderland away. That's game week 4. So I've not looked at it in terms of European games because I think Sunderland probably start the European game there in game week 4 or in and around game week 4. So I'm not sure about that. But Sunderland away isn't a great fixture. Brighton away, so on and so on. So that, I just don't feel terrified with Arsenal at the moment. I would like to have one of the defenders. So again, if Mosquera looks like he's definitely going to play, he's probably in for me. And if Calafiori looks like he's definitely going to play, then maybe it's him. Maybe it's one of those two. And Mosquera always looked pretty good to me. He looked very good to me last season, actually. Looked very, very good when he played last season. So that's where I am, really. It's just kind of, just thinking about getting one of those 5.5 guys. I don't know about you. And again, like the Gabriel conversation, at the start of the season, I sort of said it was a bit like last season in the sense that last season was like pretty much Haaland or Salah, whereas this season's more like a 3-way with Haaland, Fernandes, and Gabriel. But I don't think it is actually. And again, I've not looked at a draft with Gabriel in it. But given that if someone like Palmer's 9.5, I think it's very doable to have Haaland, Fernandes, and a Palmer, which means it's very doable to have Gabriel instead of Palmer. So it's actually more of a 4-way, isn't it, in terms of that decision? It's only really one of 4 players that you can't have. And for me at the moment, it's likely to, rightly or wrongly, it's likely to be Gabriel that's the sacrifice. I just think that's a really big difference. And obviously, people have already said this sort of stuff, but the bonus changes for Gabriel was like, what was it, -10 or something? So he's priced at 8 million. It's already not 209 points or whatever it is. 208 points is actually 198. So he's already kind of factually kind of overpriced. Yeah,
he was one of the biggest losers in that scenario, wasn't he? So made a real difference.
And I mean, I suppose my only more broad, it's not even a prediction. I think, Arsenal are great. They're going to be very good. And a lot of the other teams have got a lot weaker. I do think as a very general long-term thing for the season, I do worry slightly in terms of what it looks like for Arsenal every year. I think that when a team is so reliant on being on sort of Arteta's such an intense manager. I know I always say that, but it's so intense and it required everything, didn't it? Every single push to every single minute last season, every single slight VAR thing. It was just so intense, and I always think that isn't very conducive to like long-term success. I always just feel like it gets a bit difficult to maintain that season after season. And it gets and he won't. I don't think he has the personality to change. That's just who he is. So he might be able to go to another club and do that for a bit. But I think that's always interesting to me. You get those guys who are a bit calmer, but tend to last longer in terms of sustained success. So there's a bit of a challenge there for us.
I know exactly what you mean because it's interesting, isn't it? Because I think there's a lot of people on maybe not FPL podcasts, but sports podcasts generally. And I think a lot of people feel, Arsenal fans in particular, feel like their achievements have been sort of under regarded or almost, criticized in some small way. But to give it like this is wholly unfair, but I'll say it anyway because it was the first thing that sprung to mind. But it's a bit like, I remember when you used to teach certain classes of kids when I was teaching, and a certain set of questions came up which I knew would it would particularly fall to their style. It would suit them. It was their area of knowledge, and in that particular scenario, it's like, great, brilliant. That's come for them. That it's that range of questions. It's that range of tasks. They'll be absolutely fine. But if a different set of kind of challenges face them, would they have been able to cope with that? And I feel like Arsenal's season last season was like it suited that particular situation really well, and they quite rightly won. And maybe they will again, because it would be hard to say that there's anyone who's definitely stronger than them at this point in time. But we could easily see a scenario where it's a very different type of season and a very different kind of set of scenarios, and they might struggle with that. So, yeah, I think it's an interesting one. Just to come to your points, because obviously I missed some of it, but I do think in terms of FPL picks anyway, I've seen a few people with Rice, which is interesting, because a few people who immediately were setting themselves up for like a return to DEFCON, so to speak. I'd be personally quite wary of that. I think he badly needed or needs a little bit of an easing in if they're going to get another sort of 68 game season out of him, or whatever it is that they need from him. So I'd be a bit wary of that. And they are very likely to have good cover in that area as well. Presumably if they have Zubamendi, who he himself will be back pretty late, so they'll have to maybe use them a bit more wisely. And you've got Marino in a similar situation, but also the links to Bruno. So there's that. But so I'd be a little bit concerned about that, and I don't think the fixtures quite warrant investment in attack anyway from that in that kind of position. And as for the defenders, it will be one or maybe two, depending on how sure we can be of the starting positions. I think that's the truth of it. But at this point in time, I only feel like I'm 80% sure about either of the. I don't mean in terms of how much I'm likely to pick them, but 80% sure that these players will actually start, because I think Mosquera and Calafiori in particular is a player I really wanted to pick last year and never got round to it. But the truth is, as you know, take that left side. We know that they've played. We know that they played other players there in terms of Hincapié and Skelly and that sort of thing. So it's a little bit too early to kind of commit to that. I think most people will make a decision on Arsenal picks as a result of the Charity Shield or Community Shield or whatever it is called these days. That will have some kind of bearing on their Arsenal defence pick, I think it's fair to say. I did want the only thing you haven't mentioned yet so far is just your thoughts on the goalkeeper, because I know that in terms of sort of a safety pick, people are just locking in Raya and ignoring defenders. Does that appeal to you at all?
No. I'm just trying to have a look at the goalkeepers. Oh no, yeah. Yeah, no, it's actually quite a big gap, wasn't it, with Raya ahead of everyone else last season? I mean, they had so many cleans, I suppose.
Was it? Yeah.
162 points ahead of second, 143. Because I think who knows? And of course, anything could happen. But if I was to make a prediction, I can see myself not having Raya at any point this season.
Sorry, no, my shock wasn't that, by the way. My shock is the second top scorer is Kelleher. What the hell?
No.
When did that happen? Penalty saved, right?
Yeah, I mean, he had that mad run, didn't he? I'm thinking of Sam, actually. I remember Sam, our friend Sam on Twitter. He had it, because I remember him kept tweeting about like he had like a couple of penalty saves. It was one of those it's just one of those completely random things that no one could possibly, you just get him, and he did go on a mad run. But yeah, it's crazy. I mean, we should talk about Brentford, but yeah, I mean, it's a bit disappointing actually, the total of the second place guys. But yeah, he was 4.5, I think, last season, wasn't he? But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if I don't own Raya all season at 6 million. I mean, especially, I haven't seen enough. I'm not an expert here in terms of the guys talking about bonus points changes, but it was obviously something like they get more saves now, don't they? Because something like, even if it's a deflected shot or it's not a shot or whatever, it's something or other. I can't remember what it was, but like some things that weren't counted as shots last season are now counted as shots, so they'll be counted as saves. And also it's extra bonus because it's something like every big chance rather than just big chances in the box. The chat will know I'm talking through my arse, but there's a couple of things that have changed for keepers that, I don't know, just at first glance, without me really knowing, just strike it as, you know, basically it's even better for keepers that get a lot of saves. So yeah, I just can't see it. I just can't see it with Raya. And I mean, I owned him for the entire season again last season. So you really go through it all, because when you wildcard in game week 4 and then you don't change it until 32, and then we kept him in 32 because of the Arsenal fixtures where it goes. I think I owned him for the entire season. And I never particularly enjoyed it, but the jump is big. 6 million, you know, in terms of the distance from the 6 to the 4.5 is big. So I don't have any plans to go there.
No, I haven't considered it at all at this point. It's quite interesting, actually. Just a couple of comments from the chat about Andrew Barton, Gabriel irrelevant. Ooh. 8 million. Have the boys talked about Gabriel yet? I think the thing that I would say, I know that this is obvious to everyone now, but the impact of the Saliba injury for what we believe is a reasonable amount of time, it does make a big difference on this decision. I think, you know, if we were sitting here now and they were all starting and we were trying to guess what was going on, okay, people would be probably either finding the money, or they would be trying to make a bet on one of these more kind of flaky positions, etc. And that would be quite a gamble. Whereas now it's likely that they're gonna need this right-sided centre back, and who that's going to be. My own concern is just whether they sign someone, because they were interested in signing a right centre back even before this injury. I think I was seeing links anyway, whether it's just because Arteta is one of those guys who just loves to buy central defenders. I mean, we've all know a few managers who just want to buy centre backs all the time.
Yeah, and we do need to hope that it's not Conser, because that Conser at 4.5
just breaks the game, isn't it? Because everyone buys them then. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, we can move on from Arsenal because we're gonna go all night. But ultimately, at the moment, I'm feeling like it might be too much for me because of the players that I do want in midfield and so on. But Gabriel is an amazing pick, and of course, we could all be, you know, just he just scores a couple of goals and get DEFCONs early on, and it's just unbelievable. It's ridiculous. So we'll see how it evolves. It's early days, isn't it? But what should we do? Should we pick random teams on the screen, or
I mean, I'm happy to. Well, this is in order actually, because I'm going to go there next anyway. But yeah, from here on in, we don't have to do it like that. I'm just going to briefly sort of touch on Villa, because I think not actually because of wanting to pick any of their players, but I just think they, again, a bit like last season, despite being an excellent Premier League team who, you know, finished in the Champions League spaces and demand our attention, there's just nothing there for me. I look at this and there's kind of nowhere to go. You've got a set of 4.5 defenders who should be terrific value for a Champions League level club at this point in time. But I don't see anything I'm interested in there at all. I don't know where points come from in the midfield. And Watkins, again, is probably arriving back late, and is, as much as I like him, there's probably too much value elsewhere. So I find them a very, very difficult one to not just say we need to wait and see. I'm not worried about them in the general sense, because they've got a great manager and they'll find a way, you know what they're like. But you would be pretty pissed off if you were one of their fans going into this summer, I should imagine, because, I mean, don't get me, I'm no sympathy for me. I'm a West Ham fan, but yeah, there's just nothing there for me. I don't know whether you feel the same way.
Yeah, I've not given them a moment's thought, to be honest, because it's just a strange one, isn't it? It seems to just be a bit of a vacuum at the moment. It's just they've lost Tielemans, they've lost Rodgers. There's talk of Conser going. Watkins is another year older. Don't seem to have replaced anyone much yet, as far as anyone of note that I can tell. And they start with Brighton away and then Arsenal at home. So one of the biggest non-events that I think I can recall of any season, to be honest, Aston Villa, which is weird because they were a top team, so they're just completely non-existent to me at the moment.
I mean, there are two players I've got a vague interest in, but not right now. Actually, maybe three. Is that at some point in time I can imagine, you know, one of the fullbacks potentially being an option. You know, if we in terms of if Digne does go to PSG, is he gone? I know he was linked to PSG, wasn't he? It seems unbelievable, really, doesn't it? But then obviously Maatsen, really attacking player, and so maybe there's an option there if he takes on a bit more attacking responsibility. And then there are two midfielders that could be of interest at some point. They're just not interesting now. So Manzambi looked really good at the World Cup, blah blah blah, but you can't. I mean, well, if you've got huge balls like Andrew Barton in the chat, then you can go rogue and go in there straight away, by all means. And then Buendia is someone that could have additional set pieces, etc. But he's another one of those guys, isn't he, where you don't quite know the role. And so therefore it's not interesting at this point in time. But yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
I'll let you pick next, as I've thrown the dice in the most obvious thrown the dart in the most obvious direction.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have much preference, but just because we're on the top line, I mean, I don't want to skip anyone, so tell me if you don't. I mean, Bournemouth at the moment, I'm not. Yeah. Maybe come back to them, but I'm not really looking at the moment, and I don't know much about the new managers. I've not got to that stage. I've not got to that stage. I'm still thinking about key players. Brentford is interesting because I can't remember how much. I think what the Sharda and what's his name? They're like 6'5" and 6 or something, aren't they?
Charlotte 6 and Dango is
6'5", I think. Yeah, and it's just the Thiago thing. You know, that is another one where, and again, I'm not. Other players interest me at the moment. I just think Thiago is going to continue to be a very good pick. Now, I know he got a lot of penalties. There's no reason why he doesn't just sort of carry on being a great pick. Like I do think I can't remember what their opening fixtures are like. It's a bit like Gabriel, where especially amongst kind of engaged managers, I imagine hardly anyone will have him. And then he just sort of slaps you in the face and reminds you that, oh no, I'm a good striker. I'm on penalties and I got 21 goals last season. He's got Spurs at home, then Leeds away, then Sunderland at home, then Bournemouth away. So he's got really good fixtures.
Yeah, they're all right. Yeah,
I do think, and it's just, you know, one of the things I want to say about a couple of teams on the screen is, I always just think that one of the things you want most with fantasy football teams is identity. And what I mean by that is, you know, they are one of the knowns. They've got a manager that we know about now. They've just got an approach, a structure that we know about. We know what they're going to look like. We know what the formation is going to be. We know how they play. We know how they try and get goals. And so there's just a huge amount of knowns. And Thiago is just right at the front of that. He's a 90-minute guy. We expect him to be fully fit, fully back on it, nice and rested. 90 minutes, penalties. He's very good at penalties. They've got players who win penalties. They've got good fixtures. It's just like, it's one of those really nice differentials. The whole template will probably move away, not ever go there unless something random happens with the models. And it's just like, yeah, go for Thiago, and a lot of people go. But I mean, that's quite interesting. That is an interesting thought, because I think a bit like Gabriel, someone who is an extremely good pick will be in hardly any teams. And I'm not sure how I feel about that yet. You know, I think it's just for me that kind of, I don't know, we can sort of merge into Chelsea at the same time. It's up to you. But for me at the moment, if I was going to approach that price going forward, it's João Pedro just stands out a bit too much.
Yeah, just very quickly before we'll go to Chelsea after this. Then I think with Brentford, a lot of people actually have, it's thread season, as you know, and not to try and piss anyone off if you're on Twitter or what have you and promoting it. Like Sharda is someone who has been mentioned a fair bit because he's 6 million and obviously is the guy that can score a hat trick and that sort of thing. He might do, but I think because Jadon Anthony has been bought in on the left-hand side as well, who had a great season last season, who's probably going to be competing for minutes. That's what would be enough to put me off in that particular spot as well. So yes, I don't know. I mean, maybe he won't be, but I think Jadon Anthony's quite good, isn't he? So it's not. Yeah. I think it would. So if I was going for a midfield, it would definitely be Dango. I know he's more, but I think that's enough personally.
No, it's a good shot. I completely forgot about Jadon Anthony. So I think he puts both of their minutes under threat, to be honest. So that's
they bought him, and of course they bought Callum Wilson from a sinking ship. By the way, they've actually been linked with El Hadji Malik Diouf, already forgotten his name. So just be aware that they might have an interesting attacking left back as well, which another 4-5 probably would go alongside another Their right back's 4-5 as well, isn't he? Coyote, so some people might look at that. Just going to say hello to our good friend FPL Psycho, because I love it when people use the line from the film. But sorry, guys, I'm late, but I'm a child of a divorce. Give me a break. I'm right there with you, FPL Psycho, and I was exactly the same. So yeah,
Ditto, ditto.
give me a break. Yes, absolutely. Let's go to Chelsea. You mentioned João Pedro. They are a really interesting one this summer. Keen followers of FPL Last Resort will know that I'm no fan of Chelsea. Yeah, lots of interest there. I don't personally know enough about the kind of defensive situation, but attacking wise, there's definitely some interest there. Personally, I won't be going Rodgers for the reasons I said early on, unless pre-season completely shakes things up there. But I think, there's a couple of players in each position where I can't really see me touching it at all, and João Pedro was one of the first names there, really. Obviously, they have potentially signed Danny Welbeck today, or maybe tomorrow or something like that. So does that change anything? We'll see, but you tend to think not. So yeah, I think he's going to be fuming, isn't he? He should have been at the World Cup. It's unbelievable to me that he wasn't at the World Cup. I mean, just watching Brazil, it was screaming out at you, wouldn't it, that he would dramatically have improved them. So it's incredible to me. So yeah, João Pedro will be. I'll be very surprised if he's not in, and if he doesn't, start in the team. But yeah, that's not all that you're looking at, presumably, from the sounds of it.
Well, you tell me what you're thinking about. Oh man, cold.
Yeah, I think it's just with him, and I'll let you give the majority of the time on this one. I think for me, it's just a case of whether it's just finding that structural balance, isn't it? Because you really do have to cut down a few things pretty low to get there. But he's done the thing that we all love, those kind of training videos over the summer where he's sort of training on his own, hitting the back of an empty net, looking slightly slimmer than normal, that sort of thing. So I'm not going to pretend that I haven't been attracted by that. It's just whether one can make the money work. But if I can, then definitely interested, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just hoping that somehow the ownership stays low. It's nice to see that his ownership is low at the moment. I hope I'm not too far away from the microphone, by the way. I feel like I'm just like chilling out today, like leaning right backwards. Yeah, last time I looked, it's like 13% or something. So obviously he's not had good seasons past, and that's usually the biggest deal. Don't know what to say, really. I mean, Palmer is just, I've got to be honest, he's just absolutely stone cold Steve Austin locked into my team. So yeah, I mean, obviously that's, we'll see how it goes. I'm just willing to take that risk. I just believe in the player. I like what I'm seeing going on at Chelsea at the moment. Like the manager, I mean, you never know. He's still an unknown, the manager, but he's highly rated and I like him. I like the signings. I mean, Lacroix is a fantastic signing. If they are looking to, presumably they're going back, the back five. So straight away we found these players that fit that system that he wants. Rodgers, Lacroix, you've already got guys like Caicedo, and I don't know if Enzo Fernandez is going to stay. Probably will, unless he really wants to leave or whatever. And João Pedro is just an absolute monster, getting better and better. So yeah, all these guys are rested. They're all got a little bit of a point to prove. João Pedro as well would be fuming. Full summer off. Palmer's hopefully had his rest. We don't know. Of course, that might not be adequate. It might not be quite, on it. But yeah, and I mean, they start with Fulham away, I think, and Fulham is sorry, I'm just trying to get that up. Fulham is a team that you might expect to take a bit of a dip. Then you got Brighton at home. Arsenal away isn't great, but I'd rather be on board with that. And I love the fact that a lot of people are just saying, "I'll go there in game week 4." Of course, that could work out absolutely great and dandy, but that's not the play for me. Yeah, so I'm kind of hoping. I don't know what it's. I've not really thought yet what it's going to look like when the models come out and what's going to be optimal. I mean, you would expect that if people are plugging in a bench boost into an early strategy, before wildcard into review, I would probably expect maybe Palmer to not be optimal and not be in there, which would be great. I hope it stays like that, because that would be really nice, and they can all just plan on bringing him in at game week 4 or something like that. That's certainly not what I'm going to do or intend to do, rightly or wrong. It's just, I'm just being completely honest about how I feel, because again, just on that point, like the models are going to give you, especially if you're on bench boost, it's going to give you a strong squad. You're going to have, which is absolutely fine. That could be the way to do it for sure. You're going to have all 15 players that are pretty good. So I can't imagine that Palmer fits in very easily there, unless it's someone else to sacrifice. So I hope it stays that way, because if he's optimal, and because I expect, by the way, him to score loads of goals in pre-season as well and just look amazing, that's going to build up the ownership a lot as well. So then it comes down to the models.
Yeah, I think FOMO in the chat, our good friend, and yeah, mentions that no European football. Again, this is a conversation that we, most of us who are kind of just getting the brains warmed up again, perhaps haven't overly concentrated on, but certain teams, that's a real plus point for them. And Palmer, what with the injury load last season, he never really fully got going, etc. This time a clean bill of health, presumably, and no European fixtures. That's massive. So it will be really, really, really useful. The other thing I want to talk about, I suppose the only other point I was going to throw out there with Chelsea, by the way, I'll ask you about your views of Rodgers in a minute, because he's obviously got quite high ownership, I think. I haven't checked actually, but he's another person. There is not someone who I'm looking to for defence. I don't really know how the land lies there particularly, and obviously that probably traditionally the FPL pick there, you would have been someone like a Cucurella, and obviously he's gone. So Hato, who might be playing left wing back, is potentially 4-5, so that could be really interesting. But I don't know much about that player, so I would really struggle to put down any money on that one. But they do have an attacking right-sided one in Palestra as well, who I've never seen play, to be fair. So that's another thought. But what are your kind of remaining thoughts on any of those other picks? Do you have anything of interest to say on? Well, I was going to say the rest of the midfielders to start with. Enzo, obviously, we don't know whether he's going to be there. Rodgers, and then the defence. Does that interest you at all, or is it all about? Yeah,
I mean, just to say, this is what I just focus on key players at the moment. Just to say, I mean, Psycho just seen a comment from the chat saying, does that mean if you get in Palmer, you're not going to have Bruno? No. Again, this is early days, so obviously, I'm always quite kind of definitive in the way I sort of speak sometimes and say things I say, and it's just how I feel at the moment and what I think is likely and so on to happen. But no, I do at the moment. It's likely that Haaland and Fernandes and Palmer will all be in. Bruno's just absolutely nailed. But no. I mean, I do quite like Colwill. I do like Colwill. I know that there's the talk of the fullbacks and so on. Unless I see something really definitive pre-season, or we get loads of information, which of course we may well do, that tells us that one of those is absolutely brilliant or nailed. I think you can really, it's so easy to overthink the defenders. I mean, just because Colwill, maybe, I don't know what he looked like. I can't remember how much he played last season now, to be honest, but maybe he wasn't much of a DEFCON guy, but that doesn't mean he's not going to be a DEFCON guy now. We just don't know what that setup looks like in that back five, and we saw, it just depends on the team and the system and the structure. Don't know how many clearances he gets and what sort of chances the team allow in. Do they allow loads of crosses in? Does he play in the middle of a back? Probably not, because Lacroix probably will. Does he play on the left or the right? I don't know, but I would imagine if they're all fit, then Lacroix and Colwill are nailed, in terms of minutes, and that's what you want. Minutes are king. So I'm not. At the moment, I can't see myself fannying around with trying to pick some random fullback because he might play wing back for Chelsea, and because one side might be more attacking than the other. Sad as it is to say, I think you're just messing around too much, especially at the start of the season. And we know how good centre backs are. We know they can get DEFCON. So I like Colwill, 5 million. So obviously you bring Lacroix. Lacroix's been signed. He's 6 million. So he's completely out of the question. It's a bit of a shame for Lacroix at the moment. He's completely out of the question for the season. But if Colwill's $5 million, then that's nice.
Yeah, I think it's definitely interesting for kind of the longer term. I think in that kind of price point, there are various defenders I'd prefer at that money. But we'll come on to them in a little bit of
Yeah,
time.
exactly.
But yeah,
He's not in my team at the moment, but that might change.
Yeah.
He's not in my team at the moment, but it might change.
Well, actually, I think, by the way, this isn't a criticism of anyone else's way of probably. I do think there is a separate discussion, isn't there, about whether someone's going to make your game week 1 squad and whether you think they're an interesting price point or pick for the season. And someone like a Colwell is a good example of that, isn't it? I mean, actually, I look down their list and I immediately think, well, I mean, I watched a lot of Disassi last season, and he was really good. It was really good. I mean, if another Premier League team picks him up, I know that Crystal Palace are interested. That could be quite an interesting 4-5 at some point in time as well. But we shall see. The pivot I was going to make for the next team, by the way, is one of the reasons why Palmer is in the conversation, despite a lot of people having some issues with it, is simply that the midfielders in that kind of mid to high kind of price point, I find a little bit tricky to know how I feel about them at this point in time. I don't know whether you do, but in that kind of bracket where it's sort of 8-5, 8, 7.5, etc. I've seen quite a few people go in on Manchester United because of fixtures. So Mbuemo, Cunha, etc. Obviously, 2 really good players, but without additional attributes, you might say, in some cases, like penalties or whatever it might be. And then you've got someone like a Morgan Gibbs-White, who we both love, and it's just whether we feel like it's up to that price. So I don't know, perhaps we could pick another team which has a lot of those kind of midfielders. I was thinking City, actually, because of Semenyo. But just be interested to see what your thoughts are on that kind of those players in a similar kind of price bracket, maybe just under Palmer's price, or between Rodgers and Palmer.
Yeah, I think, again, just simplifying things as I do, so I hope it's not annoying. It's just kind of was my kind of heuristic way of playing. But for me, I think about the knowns, and I think about the I think about the avenues and so on. So Semenyo doesn't interest me at all at the moment, rightly or wrongly. I mean, again, so I just haven't got to that point yet of thinking about these players. I'm thinking about other stuff, and I'm thinking about who I do really like. So I just haven't got to Semenyo. I've not been drawn to him. I just think City. I just don't really know. Obviously, none of us know exactly what it's going to look like with City. But I just generally I expect them to be worse. I mean, they've lost the manager. The manager was one of the best managers in history. They might lose Rodri. Hope for their sake they don't. But if they lose Guardiola and Rodri in the same window, Jesus, City are in big, big trouble. So yeah, Semenyo, I don't know. Maybe his minutes are good. We don't know. He's not absolutely nailed in terms of minutes. And so, they're not locked 90 minutes. But he's a great player, a great goal scorer. It's just the avenues. So if I think about that, you just mentioned. I mean, maybe we can talk about Forest at the same time. I don't know. I just think Morgan Gibbs-White is. We'll come back to City as well, because I want to talk about Anderson and people like that. But you mentioned Morgan Gibbs-White. I think Gibbs-White is a miles ahead of Semenyo. I don't think it's close. I think Gibbs-White is obviously I just think he's a tremendous player. I do think he'll carry on. He's someone that I'm struggling. I can't fit in at the moment. It could make it work, but it's difficult. Yeah, he's just such a clever player. He's such a good player. Obviously, Forest have got Glasner. They've gone there. You do have confidence in Glasner. You have confidence in the setup. They've got very good players. You look at the front three. I really like Igor Jesus. I know we're talking about midfield, so we've got to come back round to these players. But he's a very good player. Morgan Gibbs-White is absolutely locked, probably in that sort of front left position. Just such a clever player, a guy who just makes things happen. He's always in the right place. He shoots on sight. He's great at passing. He's on penalties. He's 90 minutes absolutely locked. Glasner's that sort of guy that doesn't really mess around with certain picks and certain players there. And they've got, from what I can remember, pretty good fixtures. I think apart from game week 2, they start with Leeds at home or something like that. I just think that's so nice. Gibbs-White, 8 million, and it just feels so much more comfortable than a Semenyo, for example, who's like, yeah, okay, he's a great pick and he can score for sure, but I just see him as just this winger who can easily come off on 70 minutes, 80 minutes, is in a team. We don't really know what's going on there. He's 0.5 million more. He doesn't have penalties. He doesn't have set pieces. He's not going to do anything else for you. So, yeah, Semenyo's not even been in my thoughts. Foden could be good. Yeah, he is for me. Sorry, I know. Again, and you will hear hyperbole from me. Sorry, you're on mute, Rich. But
I didn't mean to put that on the screen. It just, for some reason, I can't move it.
no, yeah. So people will disagree, and
There we go.
It might be hyperbole sometimes, and that's fine. It's just the way I see it. It helps me to think about it more, and I do think he's miles ahead. I think Gibbs White is an unbelievable pick. He's one of those picks, a bit like Gabriel. That I'm quite upset at the moment that I can't sort of find a way in, and it's quite difficult. I've spent a lot of time thinking about him, and it's why you've got to mention Jesus as well. Igor Jesus, who I like a lot, because it's in the same conversation when we figure out what his minutes looks like. He's 6 million. I like him a lot. So he's not quite as good as Gibbs White. He doesn't have penalties. He doesn't have as good a minutes. But 2 million is an awful lot of money, and it's a price point up front, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, so for me, City's just Haaland, and I do really like Anderson though. I do still really like Anderson. The only issue with Anderson, obviously, well, not the only issue, but obviously he's been to the World Cup, so I think he will be back and play straight away. But I don't know exactly what that looks like in terms of his level of fitness. I don't really buy into the idea that his DEFCON will be that badly affected. To be honest, he's just that is almost his entire game, and he's a fantastic player, and he's great. He's very direct, and he's a good passer, and so on. But his game is almost entirely just knowing when to press, when to be in the right position, how to make interceptions, how to get on people and make tackles. He did it for England. I know that I've not seen anyone count the DEFCONs for England, but it was just constant. Didn't matter who we were playing against. It was just constantly seeing Anderson make little tackles, win the ball. That's just the player he is. So I still think he'll, for the most part, mop them up at City. It probably won't be quite as much, but he's obviously his attacking threat will be good. Better. Potentially more potential for assists and whatnot. It's just start of the season, but I do really like Anderson. What do you think?
Yeah, I do. It's I think as you say, it's that kind of fear of someone integrating fairly early on, new team, late into the World Cup, etc., etc. But that's pretty minor. I would not be surprised if actually he comes straight in and plays 90s throughout. I mean, they've spent enough of an outlay on him, etc., etc. I think it's going to come down to whether one has the extra 0.5 kind of lying around and that sort of thing, and it's a bit tricky with him to quite know how to fit him in at this point in time. But yeah, I mean, owning him last season was incredible. I think I'd probably just about lean on giving it a brief watching, a little brief, watching brief, basically. But it wouldn't surprise me if when we all wild card in game week 4, 5, 6, or whenever it is, he's one of the first names on the team sheet of like, oh, okay, I'm aware what he does now. It is fine. No issues there. He looks incredible. He's actually got some set pieces as well, and people just leave him for the season. I think that wouldn't be surprising to me at all.
Yeah, I know it wouldn't me either. So it's hard to fit him in, but I really, he is an unbelievable pick, honestly. And I know that's in a short space of time that sort of come out of nowhere almost, because it was like not people didn't think that for a long. Yeah, it's just what I think when I watch the game. You can feel so comfortable and confident watching a game of football with Gibbs White because his involvement is so high. He is everything. He's the one who puts everything together. He's one of these guys. He makes so few mistakes. He's so confident. He's so natural. He's an unbelievable player. But it's just like Bruno Fernandes or someone like that. Like if he played kind of further up the field, he is just always in the mix. So you're when you watch them, you're essentially asking yourself, are Forest going to do well today? Do I think Forest can score some goals today? Because you're that confident that Gibbs White will be involved in some way.
Yeah. For clarification, I was talking about Anderson. Sorry, I don't know.
Sorry. That's my fault because I know you're talking about Anderson at the start as well. I thought you moved on to Gibbs White, but yeah, no, I agree. By the way, about Anderson going straight into 90s, I do agree. I just don't know what it looks like straight away.
Yeah, I think the difficulty is, as you say, actually with I mean, we can elaborate a bit more about Nottingham Forest now. Obviously, we do need to see them a little bit more, but it sounds like they are playing 2 up top in a lot of pre-season friendlies. So again, that that's quite interesting from a Igor Jesus point of view. Whether it does anything to, I assume it I don't know whether it affects Gibbs White's positioning at all. I'm not entirely sure at this point in time. Penalties still a little bit of a question mark about where they go. One would still assume that Wood has them when he's on the pitch, etc. I don't know, but I think the truth is actually with Forest, there's quite a few picks that I like. If I'm honest with you, I mean, if money allowed, actually, there'd be even more. But I really like Nico Williams. I think a lot of people did even before the season started. You know, it sounds like he's being encouraged to get forward from left back. They are trying to sign a fullback, and no one's quite sure what side. So that's the only slight issue there. But I think it's most likely be on the right hand side. But he sounds like he's being encouraged to get forward. Lots of avenues, crosses regularly. Two guys who are good in the air. I mean, that looks like a nice pick to me.
I'd still
Sangare
rather
looks like a reasonable 5 million if he does mop up a few DEFCON, but of course we don't know, so that's a bit of a tricky one. And as you say, Igor Jesus, the only problem with him is simply that there are like 4 good 6 million strikers, and it's a case of trying to pick the right one, isn't it? But or two. But there's a lot of good options there. So yeah, I like Forest generally, to be honest with you. And it sounds like they started pre-season well, by the way. Their results and performances have sounded quite decent from what I've heard. But
yeah, I like them as well. I've got a good feeling about Igor Jesus. I like him. I think he's going to be good. So, yeah, no, just on your point about defenders, I'm still currently in that frame of mind, and I'm probably likely to stay there. That again, I'm not really. I'd still kind of rather find out who's the centre backs were going to be, because I know Harry just came up in the chat and he mentioned, you know, Jer Cunha, or whatever how to pronounce his first name, early on as maybe the guy who plays in the back three as a third centre back. If that happens, again, we just got to wait and see. We don't know if they're going to sign someone. I know he's been playing in pre-season, but I'd be much more interested in the centre backs than I would the wing backs again, because it's like why bother? And I know Williams, he is good and stuff like that, but why bother? Because you can just land on a centre back who might just be a DEFCON beast, and it's going to be that setup where we know from Palace last season that even, you know, Munoz was as good as you could possibly get in the game for a fullback, an attacking fullback. He basically played up front. He plays 90 minutes every single game. He scores loads of goals. He's absolutely amazing. He's always there. It's as good as you can possibly hope for at fullback. And he still was only as good, if not quite as good as Lacroix, who was cheap and was playing central centre back. Just not as good. It's just not as much value. And I think Williams is 5 million, isn't he? So
I think it's.
If Cunha's starting, it's not even a contest for me. It's not even close. It's not even close.
Yeah, I don't know about that one. I have to say, we'll see what our Forest colleague FPL Frenchy has to say. But yeah, I think. But the broader point is supportive of Forest. I think there's some good picks in there. I'm a bit more bullish on Nico probably than you are, but yeah, I think they're a good option. The only thing I would say is that you know, it's been mentioned in the chat, the fixtures some people have said aren't especially good. It's a bit of a debate, I suppose. They obviously don't have Europe.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to bench boost 2, that's the problem, isn't it? Because I think they've got Liverpool away or Newcastle away or something game week 2. Is it? What is Liverpool? Is it Liverpool away?
Liverpool away, yeah.
Yeah, so that's if you are going to bench boost 2, then suddenly that it doesn't look as good. But it's still more about the players. You still want to think more long term. Like I'd be if I was really happy if he was nailed on as a centre back for 4.5. You know what I mean? There's still a very good chance he'd be in my team, regardless of whether I was bench boosting 2 or not. Just get him in there.
Yeah, I suppose the main thing so Murillo is injured, I think, still. I might be wrong about that. So that's one issue there. I think they might still be trying to sign a centre back, so I'd be a little bit wary of.
No, that's what I mean. I know. Yeah,
what that looks like there. So
for sure.
Yeah.
We'll know by game week 1, won't we?
But yeah, Jack, quite an interesting one to keep an eye on. Can we go to, seeing as we've talked about 6 million forwards in Igor Jesus, because I'm a fan as well. But there are some pretty good options. I wouldn't mind going to Sunderland next, because I think, again, someone who was finished the season really well and obviously had a decent World Cup is Robbie, but And Lefay has taken a lot of interest in recent times, not least because of his finish in the last pre-season friendly at Liverpool. I think he scored from distance there. But he's had a bit of a price hike, of course. Any interest in Sunderland? Quite good early fixtures as well, I think, from memory.
Yeah, I'm trying to remind myself because Bobby had a good World Cup, didn't he? What did he actually do? What goals did he get in the World Cup?
He got a brace in one game. I know that much. So I think it was against Sweden.
That's right. Yeah, looks like he just scored a brace, did he? But yeah, apparently had a good World Cup. But that is interesting. I'll just be honest. I just haven't looked at Bobby enough yet. So maybe you can share some opinion on that. I mean, he's not been enough on my radar. I haven't got to that point of thinking enough about Bobby. There's a few other 6 millions that I kind of probably prefer on paper, but also because I do like Lefay. He's another player I never owned once last season, Enzo Lefay, somehow. But I like him. I like Enzo Lefay, so that's another reason I wouldn't have both. So if I do go there, that's where I'd go. Yeah, it's just like things again. It's avenues. Like it's just. I know it's really obvious, but you just want to fill your team with these guys who have all these avenues and all these paths to points. So Enzo Lefay, what set pieces, penalties, number 10 position, really good minutes, and they start with really good fixtures. So generally, I do like Sunderland. Basically, to answer your question, sorry.
Yeah.
Ipswich away, Fulham at home, Brentford away, and obviously Europe's the issue, but that doesn't start till like game week 4. And that's quite a long time. If I really like a player, I'm not too fussed about that because they're really nice fixtures. So I like Enzo Lefay a lot. He might well make my team. We'll see. I do also like the defenders still for similar kind of reasons. They're just really good fixtures. I don't know. Mukiele, another one that I never owned last season. I know he's 5.5 and I know it's not popular, but I'm open to thinking about that. Like, a lot of people just ruled him out. Like, yeah, he's gone from 4 to 5.5. And I know he was kind of overperformed and all that sort of stuff. I know Ballard's 5, but I just think what we know about Mukiele is based on that one season. He was a beast, an absolute beast. I mean, how much of it is overperformance? I know there's a lot, but how much of it is just the way this guy does things? Just gets absolutely involved. I mean, I really like 5.5 is a bit much, but I mean, I don't mind it. Ipswich away, Fulham at home, Brentford away. So I don't have a Sunderland defender at the moment, but they're interesting.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, Omar has been blackballed and will not be darkening my door again. Stay away.
Yeah.
For his 1-pointers that he ruined me with last season. So he's blackballed. I mean, but yeah, they do look interesting. I think, as you say, I wouldn't be surprised if one of Brobby or Lefay are of interest. I don't actually know. Lefay's a player that I feel like he's one of those ones where I want to go back and watch something a little bit more extensively, because I feel like it passed me by for whatever reason last season. And I think it was one of those ones where maybe there's a little bit of that negative price bias, where you see the sort of 4.8, 4.9, who's well regarded by models, and for whatever reason, it just didn't interest me at that time. So one to look at. He's going to be quite popular now simply because of Njai, being such a popular pick amongst certain coterie of managers, and he looks like he's off as well. So
yeah, that'd be a tragedy. I was just going to mention, I forgot about that transfer. It'd be a bit of a travesty if he is off, wherever he's off to. I mean, he's still not fulfilled his potential. He could be such an amazing player. But yeah, I mean, even if assuming that Njai stays, I know like he will definitely be optimal and he ticks all the boxes. But it's not. It never feels particularly difficult for me to move away from Njai, having owned him a lot last season. He is a letdown. Like, he's on paper, he's a fantastic pick, and he's on penalties, and he's a great footballer. But he just doesn't shoot. He just doesn't do stuff. So it's not that difficult for me to move off him. So someone like Lefay can easily appeal. Even if they were both there. Yeah, and there's all that quote about him wanting to score more goals this season. I know that's just kind of it's just nothing, but it all adds up. And he's scoring in pre-season. He's saying that that's what his target is. So it's looking pretty good for Lefay. Yeah. Go on. Should we move on? Should we talk about United?
Yeah, no, I think so. I mean, just to sort of pick up some pieces that are kind of linked to a few of those notes. I think Leeds have quietly had just because they've got another 6 million striker of interest to quite a few people, and the 6 million midfielders. They're quite similar to Sunderland in this regard. Some people will take some interest in Stack. Again, similar story in a sense to Lefay. You might argue Calvert-Lewin again, 6 million. Probably leading the line and with penalties and that sort of thing. But they've been bringing in some nice transfers over the summer as well. So I think someone who I would initially have been dismissive of. Obviously, they brought in Harry Wilson on a free as well. 6.5, maybe a touch much until you see how that works out. But yeah, I'm guessing Calvert-Lewin is someone who you've at least considered in your 6 million striker search, or is that not true?
Yeah, no, you have to. I mean, it always feels a little bit underwhelming because it's just like, I don't know.
Yeah,
he's a bit of a letdown as well. But on paper, he's a great pick, and I owned him last season. He did well for me. He is a great pick. I might go there. I just think with that 6 million striker spot, if you've got one, I don't know. For me, it's going to be a little bit of just feel there. I'm really going to try and feel who I actually like as a player and a pick and whatever, because it doesn't matter that much. It's absolutely fine. If you can get it wrong, it's better to have no regrets. A couple of years ago, I can't remember if it was last season or the year before now, but I think it must have been the year before, and I just really fancied Chris Wood from the start of the season.
Yeah.
Really fancied him, felt good about him, felt really good about him. For whatever reason, you kind of overthink it. You look at what's optimal, you look at this, look at that, and I ended up with Muniz, who most people had, who was absolute garbage, and Wood scored bangers every game, and just thought, God, it's just a cheap striker. Just it's not that big a deal. You can have some fun with it a little bit. So,
well, you can get for Wood again. You might. It's still an option.
Yeah.
He's. I mean, that would be great. It would be lovely.
Yeah, I know.
Back.
How much is he? Is he 6 million?
He's 6 as well.
Is he? Jesus.
Oh, I know.
Wow, that's interesting. So,
but
yeah,
presumably still off. Was well-known World Cup didn't last very long for New Zealand, did it? Is he back? I don't know.
Yeah, he'll be back now. Yeah, he'll be back for sure.
I think he played alongside Igor Jesus at the weekend or the last game. So actually, I think the fear with him is that he, towards the end of last season anyway, he was getting a lot of 70s, wasn't he? And that's probably the issue there. But
yeah, so I mean, just Stack seems like a really good pick still at Leeds. It's not been mentioned by many people, but can't see why that's not a nice pick at 6 million as a midfielder. But yeah, with those strikers, DCL. I mean, we haven't spoken about Solanke yet. I don't really know what his fitness level is like, but he on paper, these are the guys as well. If they are fit, they're going to be the optimal guys. The reason why I keep saying this is people hopefully are already aware, but it matters because the review team, when it drops in a week or two, most of the big content creators are going to move towards it because that's what happens. Most whatever is kind of optimal review will ultimately become very template and amongst most of the big content creators. So it does matter, but you would expect that Calvert-Lewin and Solanke are going to be right up there ahead of the other guys.
Yeah, another blackboard player for me. Obviously, I can't be done with Solanke, but yeah.
But yeah, I'm just gonna be totally. That's quite a loose and flexible position for me. So if it is Igor Jesus or someone I feel good about, then great. I mean, there's Osula at Newcastle. Newcastle are an interesting team, aren't they? Very interesting.
Yeah. And he looked really good, didn't he, at the end of the season, and looked really confident, really aggressive. So definitely can't rule out him. Fixtures wise, I haven't really looked at them, but they're not bad. They start, I suppose, what some people will be put off by Liverpool at home, but actually probably shouldn't be.
Agree.
Tottenham, Bournemouth, Leeds, Hull, Coventry, Villa. I mean, that's not bad at all. So
yeah, exactly. No, really good. You've got to be really interested. Again, it's just interesting now because hardly anyone will own any Newcastle players, and
yeah,
it's a bit of it seems like a bit of a shambles what's going on at the moment in terms of players in and out. But I just have faith in Eddie Howe. I mean, he's got no reason to not have faith in Eddie Howe. He's just done it, or he's always done it. And so he's back to having one game a week. When was the last time? I don't know. But I'm just thinking we're going to Bournemouth, Wilson and Frazier days where, playing once a week and just like getting the most out of these guys and being really good. I have faith in him. And so I think the minutes there are really interesting. Feels like a really underpriced team. You've got Eddie Howe, You've got this massive club, Newcastle. They are not going to, the fans, a lot of things don't change. A few of the players do. If they keep Bruno G, I mean, he's absolutely sensational. But if you're suddenly looking at like a team where, because they've lost a few players, the minutes go up, and you're looking at Harvey Barnes as like a regular on the left for like 6 million.
Okay, no, I'm glad that you said that, because NX Craig in the chat just mentioned this as well, and I was just about to chime in with this. So obviously, no Gordon is huge in this situation. And I'd love to look. Maybe somebody in the chat will know more about it than me, but like the impact of Asula on Barnes, I'd like to look at that a bit more carefully to see what kind of impact that had. But obviously Barnes could make an absolute mockery of his price tag, and he's 6 million. Who knows? He because he's one of those players, isn't he? He can brace quite comfortably. He's one of those. The problem is it lasting and minutes and all the rest of it. But definitely one to keep an eye on if you're interested in that.
Yeah, it's just a shame that it's not easier to go to those players. It's a shame that they're such a big bet now, because, like I say, if you compare them to any of the players we talked about, Lefay and Jai and all these players, they've just got set pieces and penalties, and they've got minutes, and it's also assured that it's so difficult to go to someone who could be, or should be, have the potential to be a bit of a game breaker. I mean, 6 million if he is Newcastle. I mean, because he is a proper goal scorer, and he's the sort of guy that maybe a lot of more casual players will pick, and he could just easily be banging straight away. It's a really fun pick. I just wish it was easier to justify game week 1. But I think Osula's easier if he is nailed. I mean, but I don't think he is. I mean, obviously they've got what's his name there from Brentford, Wisser. So
Wisser, Voltemada.
Voltemada, yeah. So yeah, we just don't know what that looks like. But
what on earth is going on there?
I like Bruno G. I can't remember how much he is, but I still like Bruno G. 7.
Yeah, so that's fine. But his situation is really important, isn't it? So try and find out what's going to happen there as well. Probably no interest in the defense to start with. Although again, they're all 5, aren't they? They're all 5. They all could be interesting at some point in time. So,
Liverpool, Man United, something like that.
Yeah, I was going to ask you to go on to those two, because I think, talking of teams where they have a couple of players who, the locked symbol has come out for a number of managers on a couple of players, and it seems like they both have one. But we should start with Manchester United, obviously. I mean, you've already said Bruno isn't really a question mark for you at this point in time, but what about looking elsewhere?
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, Maguire stands out for me. We want to see what the minutes look like, and obviously, we have a choice of some centre backs. Obviously, Martinez and Yoro and what's his name? Gosh, it's gone blank. This is what I mean about my brain being fried. The other guy is very good. No, the other centre back. It'll come back to me in a second.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, Heaven. So we have to see what the minutes look like. But I mean, at the moment, I'd expect him to be a starter. So we have to see what that looks like. If he is, I really like it. I mean, DEFCON could be good. It could be okay. Again, I think it sort of changes a bit. The team are going to change. He's got incredible goal threat, and they've got great fixtures to begin with. 2 promoted teams, so I do like that. 5 million. It's very nice. I just think, again, generally with United, this is the optimist in me. I'd like to think that the sort of signings that we made, hopefully, are sort of very purposeful, and and like intention behind it in terms of moving towards the style and what Carrick wants to fill certain positions. Tielemans feels like a really good signing to me. He's still only 29. Fantastic player, fantastic passer and stuff, and I think he gives a lot of outlet from the back and creativity and so on. Santos, I still don't know all that much about Santos. I watched him a bit at Chelsea. I know that the Chelsea fans were, well, from what I can tell, they were pretty pissed off, pretty gutted that they sold him for only 50 million or whatever. And I don't know who. I'm sure I know we need more players, and I don't know what that looks like yet. So I just hope, though, and I believe that it is a bit more purposeful, and so I talked about identity with Brentford. It's possible that United become a bit more of a team where you can rely on what they actually look like each week. And I like the idea of that a lot. So if Carrick is being able to get all these pieces for his style of play, whatever that looks like, whether it's transition and whether it's whatever it looks like, it could be really nice from fantasy football perspective, because that's what you want in your fantasy picks. You just want a team where you know how they operate and what they do. Other than that, I mean, it's very. I'm not interested in Cunha or Bumo because I just don't know what the minutes look like. 70 minutes isn't good enough. They're both good players. They both score goals. Same thing though. Unfortunately, it's just too hard to justify, especially at that price. It's just too hard to compare. I wouldn't. Again, I'd have Gibbs White miles ahead of the both of them at the same price. It's just minutes, avenues, and so on. But a lot of them are very interesting players. So obviously, Sesko is very interesting. If he gets a regular starting spot, I mean, he looked brilliant at times last season. Obviously, got 11 goals, but some of them, when he's really on it, he's absolutely rapid. He's tall, so he's brilliant in the air. He's fearless, absolutely rapid. So he just could be absolutely awesome. But you're not going to go there game week 1. And yeah, so Luke Shaw looks pretty good at 4.5, although there's not much there. There's no avenues. So it doesn't interest me all that much. I don't really. It's just like a bit of a. The only one that I do want to mention is Dorgu, because again, you can't go there game week 1. But if anyone is going to go God tier and become the best player in the Premier League this year, it's going to be Dorgu out of nowhere. I know. For example, Baker. I can't remember if I was just talking with him or whatever. But it was ages ago, and he was sort of saying that bits reminded him of Gareth Bale, and I think that's so true. And obviously, that's obviously a ludicrous claim, and we're millions of miles away from. But this guy could be something really special. He's a bit of a freak. He's a bit of a one-off, and he's strong, fast, and he's got this ridiculous shot on him. And Carrick obviously loves him, and there's a bit of a thing there, Again, this is why I wouldn't really want to go near Cunha or Boomer or those guys because of the minutes. Because from what I've heard and could tell, especially last season, was that people like Ahmad always played almost inexplicably at times because he thinks he's so good at holding width and being on the wing. And I think he thinks the similar with Dorgu. Like it's about that structure and that style of play. And I think Dorgu is what Carrick really wants in that left wing position. Just that real being able to hold the width, hold the line, get up and down. He's got everything he wants. So. Obviously, we're not going to go there. I just think Dorgu could become silly. What are you laughing at anyway when listening to me? Someone taking the mic?
Yeah, they were. Well, no, I don't know actually. But Benji Yag, who you've had a bit of a spar with previously on Cunha, he did mention that earlier. But his 3 messages were, "Oh God, please no. Oh my God, no." So I don't know. But that was during the Dorgu point. I think people
it
might
didn't
be.
go. It didn't go that well from last time. It didn't go very well from last time, did it? Saying that Cunha was massively overrated. So let's see.
But obviously, you're not put off by the positioning then of Dorgu.
Like I say, what I'm saying is that there is a very real chance that Dorgu, if he's fully fit, plays left wing for Man United every game.
Yeah. Oh yeah, true.
And in a very attacking position, and so there's a very real chance that happens. He is 6 million, and he's ridiculous talent. So all I'm saying is it's just a completely almost a non-FPL point because no one's going there game week 1 because you can't, and I certainly won't be. But it's just something I think to look out for because I think he could go God tier.
Yeah, very good point. Yeah, no, I'm with you on the pricey midfielders. It's interesting. Again, like you say, I haven't really done a draft in the strictest sense, but I've just put in a bunch of players that I liked what I saw in terms of early value and so on and so forth. And actually, Maguire went straight in for me as well. I don't know enough about the Shaw situation to make a judgment on that pick. I mean, I suppose as a football fan, I just assumed at some point he's going to be phased out, but perhaps I'm wrong. I mean, how do you feel about that one? I mean, he doesn't really have anything additional to offer, does he? But obviously 4-5, nice fixtures, etc.
Well, that's what I mean. He played every game last season, but Dorgu was injured a lot of the time. Again, who knows? It might be that the way he wants to, it might change, and maybe Dorgu plays left back, and maybe takes minutes off him because he can do that as well. He was a left back originally, or is. So, maybe Cunha just plays and Sesko plays, whatever, and Dorgu goes left back. But all we know at the moment is that Shaw is still a good player, and he played 38 games last season, but he just doesn't get up and down like he used to. So I don't see any threat, and I don't see any DEFCON, and the minutes aren't absolutely guaranteed. So I don't feel great about it. It's not, you know what I mean? So,
I think we're probably towards the back end now, so we'll just do a couple more teams.
just towards
and
the
then,
back end, yeah. But I think we're just towards it. 2 hours, 8 minutes.
Yeah. But it's the first one. We're not. I should say that this we will try. We're going to try really hard this season to keep it a little bit more slick and efficient. And what we mean by that is under 2 hours. If you're new here, you'll know that that's an achievement.
We don't. We obviously we just completely wing it, don't we? In freestyle, and so if we're doing a second video for Patreon every week, which we will, we're going to be aiming for like a super short, having a beer, like just having a chat. Like our super short is probably still really long. I don't know, so we don't know what that's going to look like.
We don't know. This is the problem, but yeah, and another person. Sorry, I'm going to. I mean, focusing explicitly on one player, but with Liverpool. It's interesting because there was a player at the end of last season who I kept desperately trying to put in my team and never managing it, which was obviously Szoboszlai. And it kind of, I don't know, I feel like I kind of logged back in thinking, oh, great, I can pick him this season. He's a nice solid pick and a reasonable price, really. And maybe there'll be, and then suddenly you look around and you're like, oh, everyone seems to have the same idea. So that's the only thing that's a little bit disappointing, but no detracting from the quality of the player, and he seems like the nice squidgy, relatively safe pick from Liverpool if you are going there early on. I do think Van Dijk's been a little bit overlooked, but it's just trying to find money for different things, isn't it? But what's your initial impression of Liverpool? Is anyone interest you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm the same. I really like the look of Szoboszlai at the moment. The only thing to say is, obviously, I still don't know what it looks like in terms of formation. You would expect that if Wirtz is fully fit, he plays. So does he play? I mean, so presumably that means Szoboszlai is one of the sort of two deeper line midfielders. Does he play Wirtz or Szoboszlai on one of the front three? Because presumably he's still going to play this sort of 4-2-3-1 that we've seen from him before. So all I'm saying is, I mean, Isak is obviously a big one. That is a real big one. That again, it's kind of silly now. We could all look really silly in 4 weeks' time because we just, if we see now Isak just play. Yeah, you've been holding away in for ages as well, Rich. Well, so have I. Hurry up. No, what was I saying? Isak. So if we see Isak play 4 weeks, if he looks like he's fully fit, then it's a bit of a game changer. And what do we do? I mean, I think I have to say this again when Rich comes back in terms of Szoboszlai, but I am pretty confident if Isak's on the pitch, he's the one who's going to take penalties. I really can't see why that wouldn't be the case. Isak's the main man now. Obviously, I think he's out injured for a while. Ekitike. So I would certainly put money on Isak being the one who takes penalties. So with Isak, it's really just a fitness thing because you have to think that he's still an absolutely awesome player. So that does become really interesting in terms of price points. How do we get there? How do we fit him in if we need to, when we need to? It's going to be chaos, in terms of Haaland and those price points. So yeah, obviously that means that we could, Szoboszlai feels fairly obvious at the moment, or certainly really good, but it could actually just be that he ends up sort of deeper player who's takes a lot of the corners, has a good long shot on him, and doesn't take penalties. So just to say really quickly to you, Rich, I do think Isak will be on penalties if he's playing. So I'm just saying with Szoboszlai, if he's playing a bit deeper and he's not on penalties, how good a pick is he? I don't know, because then we might not see any DEFCON from him as well if he's not getting the DEFCON in defensive positions. So it's interesting. Szoboszlai looks great at the moment. We could be in a situation where 4 weeks in he just looks quite average as a pick. I don't know, or he could just be absolutely amazing.
Maybe.
He could just be brilliant still. So
yeah,
but Isak is a weird one that we're all pretending isn't happening. That's the sort of thing I was saying at the moment.
Yeah, very true.
If he plays for 4 weeks, if he just plays all the sort of preseason, I don't know where he's up to. And they've got really good fixtures, haven't they? So
yeah, no, I do. I think we're all kind of a little bit scarred by the injury fear and the fitness and the fact that he didn't look all that great in the few flat. I mean, not bad, but just he never got a run, did he? Basically, in the teams to make any judgment by. But looks a little bit brighter at the World Cup, just about, I suppose, in patches. So Yeah, I think most people were a bit of a wait and see, but it would be very difficult to. Maybe not very difficult, but it will be slightly awkward for most managers to go there. But that's what makes him quite an appealing pick, isn't it? Because if he has penalties, he's 9 million, he plays for Liverpool, and they have nice fixtures. Then people that will be an early wild card pick when it'll be the kind of thing that people are like, shit, I can't get to Isak.
Yeah, and again, I don't want to state the blindingly obvious, but all of the value, especially from Haaland, but also as soon as you get into these higher tier players and even Bruno now at 12 million. So let's just focus on Haaland for a second. Virtually, well, a huge amount of his value is just captaincy. It's captaincy. So Haaland doesn't even have to change all that much. Others can change around him for that value of that captaincy to go down. If Bruno Fernandes gets even better and is an absolute monster, if Cole Palmer returns as being the best player in the Premier League or whatever, in terms of fantasy football pick in the Premier League, the value of Haaland as a captain goes down because you just don't need to captain him as often. So that changes everything. So then suddenly you might be able to if Isak's banging it, 6 million price difference is just nothing. So everything's going to change so quickly. But the reason why we all have to, well, we all feel like we have to. Not everybody has to. But the reason why we're all thinking like you have to go with Haaland at the moment is you stick to the knowns, stick to what's safe at the start of the season, and make sure you've got the guys who are the best captains on paper. So regardless of whether that changes in 4 or 5 weeks, we don't yet know which of those big guns we can come off for that isn't worth as much and so on. And that's when Isak just comes into it, I suppose, if he is going to. Yeah. You know what I mean? Obvious, I know, but it doesn't take much. Like we know City, like I say, City have lost Guardiola. If they lose Rodri and they go down 10% as a team, and I think, whatever, I think they will. I just don't think they're going to be I don't think they can possibly be as good. Then that's a big, big dent on Haaland. I still think Haaland will be great because he's just an absolute monster of a goal scorer. He will always be as good a goal scorer as we can get, sort of regardless of the price. But it doesn't take a huge amount to go down and Isak to go up, for example, for that to be completely flipped. And that's worrying because of the prices. That's worrying. That makes it very easy for everyone if Haaland drops out and he's not needed as a captain. It just
yeah. No, it really does change things. A quick word, by the way, on their defenders before we kind of move on to. I think Spurs is probably a nice one to go to next. Obviously, if there's anything you want to add on, I suppose Brighton.
No.
Maybe
I mean, I've not really looked much into Spurs, to be honest. I mean, I don't. That's about it.
It's more speculation at this point in time, isn't it? But just very quickly, I mean, for anyone looking for I'm not, because I'm kind of locked in on a team name in FPL that's fairly permanent with the Hammersmith Hardmen, because obviously it's a bottom reference. Look out, birds! It's a Hammersmith Hardmen. I mean, we've all seen it, right? Season 3, if anyone needs to watch that. But of course, if you are interested in their 5 million new central defender, is it Jack A? Presumably his name is, but no Jack A required. In appraisal of the Phil Collins album from the 1980s, is a terrific team name that like about 1 million people are going to take now. So no Jack A required. You're welcome. Basically,
like it.
There you go. In fact, if Psycho's still in the chat, he'll know. He'll be very aware of Phil Collins album titles because they make an appearance in American Psycho quite a lot. Yeah, the only remaining teams then, just we won't perhaps elaborate on them, but I'm just going to give sort of a quick fire kind of thought on a few other things and see if there's anything you want to add before we wrap up. We will come to them over pre-season. We just don't have much to say at this point in time. Feel free to have a couple of quick points of view. I still think we need to know a little bit about how Sarr fits in. I mean, I have to be honest with you again. When I was immediately putting together like a sort of quick fix draft, because rather than anything to think about that carefully. And no, Craig in the chat, I know you're going to hate me for this, but we didn't really see the point in a draft for today, but we will come to that. We will discuss it. We just wanted to talk about players and general strategies kind of today whilst we're getting our brains warm again. But I do think Sarr, Crystal Palace, we have to see what happens there, because again, if he is playing as a forward or an off forward, with some interest in penalties, he would comfortably be my 6-5 pick or mid-price midfielder pick. So I still want to see something there because I do really like the player, and he looked terrific again at the World Cup. Another brace, I think, in one game. So yes, Crystal Palace, I've got some questions to answer, but I don't want to rule Sarr out of the equation at all.
Yeah, I haven't really thought. Yeah, that's fine. I mean, again, these are what sort of sleeper picks in it that no one alone is sort of interesting, and it's sort of, you can't think about everyone, and I just haven't been there to think about those guys yet.
Yeah.
They're just not. They need to show me something. So I've not thought at all about Palace. Just to say quickly, just a response in the chat. I think it's Tom or something. Was just saying why do I think that about Sobbo and Isak? I mean, I'm not saying I think Sobbo will definitely play deeper. I'm just saying that Wirtz, if he's fit, is going to play. So where's he going to play? They're both going to play, and Sobbo is very good in deeper as well. So he could, is all I'm saying. And why do I think I'm not saying Sobbo definitely won't take penalties. I just think that generally I'd be more surprised if Isak, he's a £100 million striker. He's the main man. He's the number 9. Really, when you're the main goal scorer, you want the penalties, and you kind of should be taking the penalties. You just take that sort of goal scoring mantle. So I just think he would, and I'd be surprised. And he's very good at penalties himself. But so just even if you think Sobbo is better than him, it doesn't work like that always, does it? Salah would take the penalties off Milner or something. Messi takes every penalty and shouldn't be taking any of them. But it's just who's going to step up. But yeah, sorry.
And I mean, just to finish with, from my point of view, because there are lots of questions that still are knocking about, but we won't be able to answer them all today. There were just kind of little murmurings in the background where personally I haven't really given it enough of a chance to breathe at this point in time. There's a question about, for example, Krupi at 7.5 in the chat. I mean, I don't feel secure about the minutes enough to do that, but I do see that could be really, really interesting if it's clear that he's playing a good amount of minutes each week and has penalties. So that's something. But to start with, personally, probably not. And then there are two teams who are kind of equal for me in planning purposes, which is Brighton and Tottenham, or Spurs rather, and they're teams who I believe are quite strong, and I'm sure will have an impact during the season to pick from. But from the start, it's quite difficult to know where one would go there to start with. So for Spurs, for example, I'm doubtless that they'll be stronger than of the last year. They look much more robust, a couple of good signings and that sort of thing. But I don't know at this point in time that I've got enough to go there just yet. Similar with Brighton, I know Gomez is quite an interesting 5 million option. So a few people have said that. Vuskovic, very good for Defcons in his previous teams, etc., but probably not enough confidence to go straight away. Yeah, someone's mentioned Kinski. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, he's a one, and Verbruggen, of course, 2 of the better 4-5s. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. They're the 2 standouts from those 2, aren't they? I mean, they're the only 4-5s we know about them. Hopefully Kinski is, because can't think of anyone else who plays otherwise. 4.5. Well, there will be someone, I'm sure, but promoted teams, whatever. But thinking about bench boost. But yeah, I mean, Brighton, unfortunately, it's the same with them all the time. It's the minutes. I mean, they've got Europe to add into it as well now from game week 4 or whatever, so it becomes even more problematic. But the minutes are just all over the place. I mean, even if Welbeck was staying, anyone who's looking at Welbeck is. I mean, I suppose Gross. If Welbeck leaves, then Gross. If there's a situation where Welbeck leaves and Gross gets like 80% pen share on review or something, and he'll be in everyone's team game week 1 because he'll be optimal.
Yeah.
But then again, Europe's still a problem. Like, I don't know what that looks like for Gross or any player from game week 3 or 4, whenever it is. The minutes are probably going to be affected. But yeah, otherwise, you just have no idea what it looks like for any of them. And Spurs, I'll just say that again. Yeah, I expect brilliant signings. I mean, ridiculous. So they're going to be much better. And but Maddison, I don't expect to be a pick at all. He's not even close. I wouldn't go anywhere near him because we don't know what his fitness looks like. Probably might never be fit again. Solanke needs to get a lot of minutes, and then he looks great if he's 6 million on penalties. Looks really solid. And I quite like Fernandes at 6 million just because he's a guy who does a lot of stuff. But
yeah, as you can imagine, I kind of immediately I can't close the door at the same time. I immediately liked the fact that a lot of Spurs fans were getting excited at the idea that Fernandes has been hitting sort of 30-yarders and that sort of thing, and you're like, Yeah, that doesn't happen often.
Yeah,
It's not that kind of guy. Just give me a second. I will close the door.
No, it's cool. I don't know if Rich can still hear me, but yeah, we'd probably wrap it up there because I think we've probably covered everyone without doing it to death, haven't we, Rich? I mean, so there's still lots more to talk about on other pods. I mean, yeah, we want to finish before the 2-hour 30-minute mark. We've already missed our target by 24 minutes. So
Yeah. It's inevitable today, isn't it? We're a bit rusty. But yeah, I mean, to what lots of people are asking about this, about drafts. I mean, personally, okay, this is just my own view, and I know that I might lose a couple of people by saying this, but I do think that, you know, you can take early drafts with a pinch of salt. Really, it's everyone has got their own process. I mean, I'm not entirely convinced I want to see anyone's draft personally, but that's not very helpful. So yeah, I think we'll warm into it. The next couple of pods will start moving in that kind of direction for sure, and yeah, it'll be interesting to see what we have, and maybe even if they're just talking points, is probably more of an appropriate thing to say at this point in time. But you know, I think it's important that we all don't kind of hone in too heavily on drafts at this point in time. I'm always wary of putting something down that's going to stop me thinking. I don't know whether that's kind of how you see it, but I feel like if I move too quickly towards a draft, almost I'm sort of overly blocking off routes to independent thought, and you know, trying to let pre-season affect things, to let new information come in and that sort of thing. So it's a balancing act, really.
yeah, no, I do the same. I mean, I'll have a draft so that I know, so that I'll have a draft mostly so that I know what it looks like in terms of money spent. But for example, like
Yeah.
I only ever have like half a draft because I just focus on players. So I've spent like a week just thinking about like 4 or 5 players and who I want to be certainly in there. So then like the other 5 or 6 players are just could be anyone. So for example, I've just not even really got to defense at all yet, and I've not properly, absolutely no idea. So me showing a draft now would be completely pointless other than just talking about some key players. I've pretty much, you know, mentioned everyone who I really like today anyway. So, yeah, good.
Yeah, exactly. Great. Okay. Well, we'll wrap up. I will just again give a bit of a reminder that we you know, keep an eye out for announcements, because we're bringing in lots of new things. It's likely, like I said, that the format of the pod will change a little bit in terms of how one visualizes it. We're going to be putting the new Patreon out there with Discord access and new videos and extra videos during the week, etc. And obviously, absolutely fine to kind of stay as you are, but I think there are lots of great minds. I think it'd be interesting to get us together as a bit of a gang, and the last resort bar, so to speak, is a fun place to be. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, we'll do some more announcements on that, and yeah, we'll be some guests. We're in discussions and negotiations with various people. I think I mentioned FPL Fran, who's someone who I know will be coming on soon. I need to organise dates for that, and then there's a few other people as well who we're definitely going to be looking to talk to, but I don't want to kind of ruin that too early. But of course, actually do put in the chat after this video anything you want to see or you'd like discussed, or just questions that you want answered in future videos. We can definitely think about that and put it together, because you know, we're only human. I only did the slides for this today. Danny and I, you know, are sort of coming back off of holidays and all sorts of other things. So yeah, then we'll put something good together.
Yeah, and just anything that people want to see in it, and anything Patreon or anything that needs to go on the walls, and anything, you know, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And what the prize? We need to figure out prize for mini leagues. We need to do all that sort of stuff. We've got the mini league to sort out, and we can. I don't know. Well, I know there's one prize, but there might be other prizes. You know, there might be second and third. Obviously, it's hard to top the lavender pillow spray, but you know what I mean.
I was going to say, I've actually got. I think there's a lavender scented diffuser in there as well. You know, I mean, not as a prize. I mean, it's probably more expensive than the spray. I actually, yeah. No, so anyway, I won't talk about that, because it could be here all night talking about that kind of thing. Yeah. But yeah. Any prizes that you want to see. But yeah, actually, just a quick reminder on mini league, seeing as you've mentioned it, just for anyone who's just come in a bit late today. But the code, let's see if I can find it.
Yeah, and just to say, people in the chat are saying, like, where can we suggest stuff? Just, I guess, do it on the comments for the video after it's off its live chat for now. And obviously we'll have a Discord open in a week or so whenever we get it sorted.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
So
Mini just in the chat then, R6AIW9, it's all lowercase. So yeah, please do join. Anyway, we'll see you very soon. But there'll be certainly something every week of pre-season for sure. And enjoy your evening, and we hope to see you again shortly.
Nice one.